My toxic, creepy brother has flirted with my future husband in ways that are completely unacceptable. And now, after dealing with his awful treatment towards me and my life, I've decided that I'm going to ban him from my wedding, causing my family to lose their minds on me as they say that I'm being overdramatic. Here's what happened. Okay, so I come from a big blended family and recently bought an engagement ring with my long-term partner. Now, we're not even officially engaged. I'm just a planner and I have started getting things ready. We have been together for multiple years and have maintained a pretty close relationship with most of my family. Although there is family drama all around, my older brother, who we will call Trevor, has been a problem for a while. I told my mom this weekend that Trevor is not on the guest list, and she has been all over the map. Most recently, she told me that I cannot get married without him there. Now, for a bit of context, Trevor lives in his parents' basement and can be a bit misogynistic. He basically says horrible things about women, and my mom blames it on him being autistic. Now, I am a huge trigger for him. I have a master's degree, and he's still working on his bachelor's. I also have no problem with this fact, but he believes that I succeed academically and professionally just to make him look bad. We're in similar fields, but my actual degree is different from his. He wouldn't even go to my graduation or my graduation party because he was very bitter about all of that. A month before graduation, he said that I only succeeded because it all comes easy to me and that I throw it in his face that he struggles academically. Now, I don't feel like I've ever done this, but he has been very upset by my academic success regardless. My relationship is also a very sore subject. Right as I started dating my current partner, my brother's engagement fell apart. It was messy and they were both intense at the time. He's had a couple of serious partners since then, but I feel his toxic behavior is a part of the reason he hasn't found a healthy relationship. He's also been inappropriate with my partner, sat on top of him, sent Snapchats saying my partner is his boyfriend, and generally made my very kind and supportive partner feel uncomfortable. My partner has said if it was up to him, he wouldn't invite Trevor, but he wants it to be up to me. Now, I haven't really spoken to or interacted with Trevor in about a year. He damaged about $3,000 worth of another person's property and wouldn't accept his role in the situation and said that our parents would just pay for it. And I find that kind of behavior appalling. He wouldn't take accountability. He had our parents solve his problems, and it just seemed immature. All of that coupled with this treatment of me in the past led to me minimizing contact. My mom has tried to get me to talk to him, but I feel Trevor is at fault for the cracks in our relationship, meaning that he can be the one to try and mend the situation. I feel if I invite him to my wedding, he will get drunk and be messy and embarrass me. He'll insult me and flirt with my partner and end up upsetting one or both of us in some kind of way, and I'm sure that he will cause a scene. At the end of the day, it is my wedding and I say no, but my mom thinks that I'm being immature and inflexible. So would I be the jerk if I banned my brother from coming to my wedding? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you would not be the jerk. This is so obnoxious. First of all, this guy is not misogynistic because he's autistic. Like, there's no correlation there. That guy's just a terrible person. And the fact that your mom is trying to defend that in any kind of way, let alone blame that on autism, is so weird to me. But also, this guy sounds like a mess. Seriously, he's trying to be like, wow, anytime you succeed, it makes me look bad. And it's like, no, stupid, I'm just living my own life. You're the one that has nothing going for you, and you're somehow, I don't know, bitter and jealous about it. Because the fact of the matter is, you have done nothing wrong. You literally haven't done anything to this guy. And he's sitting there trying to be like, wow, you have just completely ruined everything for me. Now, when it comes to him flirting with your partner and sitting on him and being like, oh yeah, this is my boyfriend, that is super weird and that is unbelievably inappropriate. That crosses a serious line for me. And that example alone would be like, oh yeah, you're definitely banned from my wedding. You're never showing up. So in my opinion, it would not be dramatic for you to say this guy cannot show up. Regardless of if he's your brother or not, this guy has proven to be completely toxic and unable to control himself in any situation. And that is something that I do not think that you should ever have to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to stop thinking she's the only one who can do it all after she rolled up to my house with an awful attitude? Here's what happened. Okay, I am most likely the jerk, but my parents, who think that they are the only ones who can keep the world going, tend to drive me crazy. For a little bit of background, I'm a 47-year-old male, and I've had issues with this one neighbor before when she told me that my house gives her anxiety, and I have been trying to just avoid her in general. After this one incident, I have just avoided her at all cost, and if there's anything that we need to talk about, it goes through the parents' email systems through the school. So anyways, there's a school banquet coming up soon, and I have volunteered a couple of times for it. I forgot it was coming up, so naturally I didn't say anything. Well, she stopped over the other day to see if I was interested this year. From the past experience, My house was in a midweek state, so it was kind of an organized chaos. She said that she was at another parent's house a couple of houses down from us, so she felt like it was easier to just stop over than email, and I guess it could be believable. She asked about the banquet, and I looked at the calendar, and I saw that my stepson was going to be gone for that weekend. So I told her no, I was not going to be helping, and that I was actually relieved because there's a lot that we have going on right now. Now you might be wondering, this really should have been the end of it, right? Well, I thought so, but I was completely wrong. My neighbor then started on her own tangent about everything she does to manage her house, and that includes managing all the kids' events, and how she does it all herself with no help. And I don't know why she told me all of this. I then told her, and these were my exact words. Well, good for you. I'm lucky because in this household, we all pull together and help one another out. My husband, stepson, and myself, we all share the house responsibilities. Maybe enlist your husband and kids to do the same thing. It might help free up some time. Well, when I said that, she looked at me like I had a third eyeball and told me that nobody knows how to organize the family like she does. I told her, well, that was her own fault for making it so that nobody could live up to her standards. And when I said that, well, she didn't really like that answer. I told her I needed to get my own stuff done and that she needed to go. Well, as a result of this conversation, I'm now the public enemy #1 among the school moms, which is no big deal to me. This is all just a giant clique. But from what I heard earlier, I'm the jerk for not understanding what it's like to be a parent these days. And this really is funny to me. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling a parent to stop trying to do it all? Because right now I'm still incredibly annoyed. Oh boy, it sounds like you have a crazy neighbor and that is so frustrating. First of all, the fact that she's like, oh, I don't like your house, it gives me anxiety. Like, first of all, that doesn't make any sense. And also, what does that mean? Like the sight of your house gives her anxiety, or she just doesn't like what you do in your house? Because both of those answers are like completely irrational. But for her to show up and be like, oh, I do all this stuff, what do you mean you can't do the same? And it's like, I don't know, lady, maybe I'm able to share the load and you're not. Like, I can't help you with that. So truly, with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all. And I really think that your neighbor is just a busybody who clearly needs to mind her own business. My mother wants to get a divorce and then move into my new home. And when she told me this, I feel completely blindsided, as I feel that she's manipulated this entire situation in a way that honestly makes me believe she was planning this from the very beginning. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I are in the process of buying a new home, and we are weeks away from exchanging contracts. We live in the United Kingdom, and house prices are awful, so it's been hard saving up for our first place. As a result, we have spent the last year living with my parents, who are also generously gifting us about $20,000 for the deposit. This has been difficult enough for me, but it has been incredibly hard on my fiance. She works a very stressful job and doesn't feel she can truly unwind when she gets home. My parents are laid back, but they have their quirks. My mom will often cook on my fiance's off days, despite knowing this is her biggest hobby and the thing that she loves to do just to relax. She will often ask prying questions to know more about our relationship. My mother is very family oriented, but despite having conversations with her, she does struggle to set boundaries. Anyways, last night, my mom brought me over and she talked to me about how she may want to have a divorce. And honestly, this probably should have happened well into my childhood, but I thought, yeah, that's kind of reasonable. But right at the very end of the conversation, she states that she could then move in with us in the second room, which by the way was supposed to be my study, as I do have some work from home days. I didn't react and I tried to play it cool, but I'm honestly losing my mind right now. And yes, I know this probably comes off as incredibly selfish. My parents have been very generous with the gift and letting us live here. I am 100% planning on paying back their deposit when I can, and would have always looked after my parents when they got older and needed more support. However, I now feel like this has been my mom's plan from the very start. My fiance has literally been counting down the days when she gets independence. She wasn't even keen on the idea of saving up by staying with my parents in the first place, and I'm now wondering whether we just ditch it all and rent instead, or move to a significantly cheaper city. I haven't spoken yet to my fiance about this because she has already been feeling very low about her current living circumstances. Does anyone have any ideas on how best to handle this? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, there's no way I would ever go through with buying that house. Your mom absolutely was planning this from the beginning. If you take that $20,000 and put it towards that house, she will always have that over your head, pretty much until the end of time, until you pay her back. She'll then be like, oh, well, I already gave you $20,000 and I let you live in my house. Why can't I stay with you after I get my divorce? Like, that is absolutely what's going to happen, and that is going to be a living nightmare. And it is very clear that your fiance does not like your mom at all. Like, seriously, this is not a good fit. So if I was in your shoes, yes, absolutely, I would move, find something else, and rent. Because your mom is planning something very nefarious towards your relationship. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair, and it's only going to cause you and your fiance say, a lot of damage. My entitled landlord refuses to listen to what I have to say over a $60 internet bill, and despite the fact that that should have been paid through my rent, I decided to get some petty revenge by signing up for my own internet plan in the house that I was renting. And even though this is going to cause some headaches down the line, it still felt good to get back at my landlord in a way that they would never expect. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, there is some backstory here to give some proper context. I'm currently renting a house from my niece's father, who is currently serving a small prison sentence. I rented the house because I was in need of a place to stay, and he was running out of time to get his house ready for tenants. For reference, he had been remodeling before he was locked up and sent to county jail for 7 months until he was sentenced. Now, it was livable, but there was some unfinished flooring, it needed some trim, the temporary plywood countertops need some real ones installed, there's some doors that are broken and need replacing, and the list goes on and on. And this is mostly smaller work considering I'm a contractor, and I could blow these jobs out fast, and the idea was to take the work off the rent. Now, the inmate's mother is who I'm dealing with when it comes to paying rent. The inmate and I discussed rent being about $1,600 a month. This would include covering the mortgage, water, sewer, and internet service. All of these things are also at a fixed cost, meaning that they don't fluctuate like gas and electric will. So I pay those direct with the bill that comes to the house. Along with this, I would do some of the work around here while he was gone. Specifically speaking, I would be working on the internet. We discussed it would be easier for him to not have to pay to cancel his service and have it taken from the rent, especially considering we do not get a physical bill sent to the house. The bill only shows up on the application that is on the phone in the inmate's mother's possession. Well, here's where things get really crazy. A few days ago, the internet was out, so I messaged his mom and let her know. When she was able to respond, she informed me the bill hadn't been paid and proceeds to send me the monthly statements. Now, at that point, I explained what our agreement was, but she wasn't hearing any of it, refusing to believe that this was the agreement. But I simply don't want to pay for something I was under the impression I already paid for. Not to mention, I don't even have access to the bill to pay it. And if I have to ask you for the bill every month, it literally just doesn't make sense, and at that point, I'll just get my own service. It's honestly a pretty simple situation. And well, with that in mind, that's exactly what I did. The conversation with the inmate's mother took place at 7:00 p.m., and I was on the phone with a new internet service provider by 8:00 p.m. and had install set up the next day by 9:00 in the morning. Also, the installer came early and I had internet by 9:15 in the morning. Well, now you'll pay me for those outstanding statements yourself, and you'll be paying the company $300 contract cancellation fee. Also, any of the work I was planning on doing, I will now invoice time and material at $75 an hour, which is still way cheaper than I bill out. And you know what? The money is peanuts to me. I don't really care about $60, but I really just wanted to have a civil discussion about all of this. And even after all of this, I'm actually paying more because I'm not subtracting the original internet service from the rent. Admittedly, where I screwed up was not getting it in writing before this guy went to prison, but honestly, it's whatever. I found a solution and I just decided to move on. Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where it's like, oh man, you really should have got this in writing, because literally this is what happens. People pull one over on you, they're like, oh yeah, that's not gonna work for me. And it's like, wait a second, this is what we agreed upon. And then some third party comes in and says, well, I don't know about that. So yeah, it was kind of a misstep by not having it in writing, but at least you know now, because the way this lady acted, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for refusing to loan my expensive camera to my friend for her vacation? Because right now she's saying that I'm selfish and I'm acting paranoid. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old male and I've been in photography for years. And I recently invested in a high-end DSLR camera and lenses. It's not just a hobby for me. I sometimes do freelance gigs and my equipment is worth thousands of dollars. Well, my friend, who we will call Jessica, is planning a vacation to Europe and mentioned that she wanted to take better photos than what her phone could manage. And a few days ago, she casually asked if she could borrow my camera for her trip. Well, I immediately said no, explaining that the camera is expensive, fragile, and requires some knowledge to use it properly. Jessica then said to me that she's careful with things and that it's not that big of a deal because it's just sitting there while I'm not using it. But I stood firm and I told her that it wasn't personal. I just don't loan out my camera to anybody. Jessica then got upset and said that I was selfish and paranoid. She even joked and said, what's the worst that could happen? It's not like I'm going to drop it in the ocean or something like that. Well, ever since then, she's been a bit distant and has told a mutual friend that I'm stingy and not supportive. One friend even said that I could have just let her borrow it, as it's not like I'll need it while she's gone. Now, I feel bad that Jessica is upset, but I also don't think I should risk my expensive equipment for her vacation photos. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing here? Because right now, I'm really confused. No, you're not the jerk at all. This is the only smart decision here. In case you're not aware, some of these cameras and lenses can be really expensive. So when the original poster says, yeah, this is worth thousands of dollars, I definitely believe them. So I'm personally right there with them by saying, no, you're not taking this camera. Your friend could go buy one at the store that's way cheaper than that will probably take better photos than the camera she has on her phone. And that easily could suffice for what she wants to do for this stupid vacation. And I find it so funny that she's saying that you're selfish and paranoid, because yeah, of course you're gonna be selfish and paranoid. It's not like the friend's gonna pay for it if she drops it and breaks it. If anything, she'll be like, oops, accidents happen, and then like never pay for anything she damages, and then you're stuck footing the bill just to repair it. So no, of course you're not the jerk here. The friend is clearly the one being selfish, and I don't blame you for immediately shutting that down. My entitled mother volunteered me to buy her friend's son a day pass to a ski resort that I get a discount at as a college student. And I'm honestly so annoyed by this entire scenario that right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female in college, and my mom has a bad habit of asking me to do random stuff. We do not get along, and we never really have. Today, I got a text from a random message asking if I would buy a day pass for their son this Saturday at the local ski resort. Keep in mind, I do not know these people. The kid is friends with my younger brother who's 17, but I've never met him or his parents. My sister is a year younger than me and goes to the same college that I do and can get the same discount. Not to mention, I have to work on Saturday, and I am not going to be late because I have to go pick up a pass at the ski hill and then meet up with these random people. So I texted my mom about it. She claimed she didn't give the lady my number, but where else would she have gotten it from? My mom then said that I was being dramatic, but they literally request ID when you go to pick up the ticket, and I have to sign waivers and stuff in my name. The kid is 15 years old, and it would be a college student pass. So I politely text the lady back and I tell her that I have to work and I'm not sure how all that works and that I'm sorry I can't help. But my mom is now acting like I committed one of the 7 deadly sins. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because this is honestly so confusing. No, you're not the jerk. This is so annoying. I cannot stand when people try to volunteer me for stuff that I did not want to sign up for. And that includes helping out some random stranger I've never met. Like if this was a family friend or someone that I had met in some kind of way and had a connection to, then sure, I'd be happy to help out, even if I'm not a fan of being like volunteered for it in some kind of way. But this is clearly a situation where your mom ran her mouth a little too much and she ended up signing you up for something that clearly you never agreed to. I've run into that a bunch in my own life, and I'm sure some of you listening have as well. And that feeling is so irritating because it's like, oh my gosh, just leave me alone. I did not sign up to do this, and I don't want to deal with any backlash if it goes wrong. So no, you're not the jerk here. This behavior is so annoying, and I don't blame you for getting pissed off because your mom is crossing a serious boundary in my opinion, and this is definitely something that needs to stop sooner than later. An entitled jerk acts like he owns my college parking lot as he literally parks his car sideways and blocks 2 parking spots close to the front of the school, which then literally prevented me from getting to class on time. And so, in my frustration, I decided to report this guy, and I really hope he gets in trouble for the crappy things that he just did. Here's what happened. So today is already a really awful day. We were hit with a wet snowstorm. So it snowed and then rained, and now there's a combo of slush, sleet, and ice on the roads. And it's still pouring, and it's really cold. Not to mention that I also woke up late for class, so overall, it's not the best start to the morning. So I get to my college's parking lot. Despite my college having several parking lots, the actual part you drive down is very narrow, and only a couple of the rows are one way, so it's already cramped. And turning into the parking space itself is also narrow and tricky if there's another car in the spot next to the one you're pulling into. So I'm driving the road trying to find a parking space when I see this car parked sideways and literally blocking 2 parking spots. Well, I pull up behind him and he doesn't move at all. He gives me a dirty look in his driver's side mirror and continues smoking his cigarette. He then proceeds to eat something and throw the plastic wrapper out the window. This guy's also like 50 years old, and he might be a student, but most likely he's not. And it's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? Why must you block not only the row that is already so narrow to begin with, but also block 2 of the closest parking spaces in the pouring rain at 8 in the morning in awful weather when students are trying to get to class? Furthermore, why in the world are you littering? People who litter are the epitome of trash. Trashy people with trashy behavior. Well, I did call security as I didn't see the parking sticker or the pass on his car, because even if he is a student, why don't you just park your car and eat your food and smoke your stupid cigarettes? Or why don't you just go home and dump your trash on your kitchen floor? Why must you take it upon yourself to make everyone else's day a little bit harder for no reason? So yeah, I'm really hoping this day gets better because I really hate driving in the rain. Wow, this guy's a massive jerk. Seriously, this guy went out of his way to not only take up 2 parking spots, but also just throws his crap all over the place. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I think we've all been there where we're trying to find a parking spot in some kind of like organization, whether it's college or not. But trust me, me, if you've been to college, then you know that, yeah, there's no parking available, especially if there's no like assigned spots that you can run to. So if there's like an open lot and it's like, okay, first come, first serve, then you know you better grab one of those spots or else you are completely screwed. So this guy taking up 2 spots is like mind-numbing, because I can probably guess exactly what happened to the original poster here, all because this guy took up those spots. They kept driving down this stupid road to find a parking spot, only to then discover that, yeah, there's no spots available and you are completely screwed. And so then they have to park in the very back of the parking lot, and they're now even more late to their class in the rain, in the snow, in this icy, crappy weather. And yeah, I think we can all relate to that to some degree, because that really sucks. So yeah, that guy was being a massive jerk for acting that way, and I don't blame you for reporting him in the slightest, because what he was doing was very unfair for you and literally anybody else that would drive by. An entitled Karen cuts in line in front of an entire store full of people and decides to make a scene when she doesn't get what she wants. And after hearing just about enough of her yelling and screaming, I decided to speak up and put her in her place. This is what happened. I recently relocated and moved 2 time zones east and had the luck to fly in at midnight during the last of an early summer storm with my 3-month-old son. I had a hard time coming down from the adrenaline of landing, and to say that I was exhausted when I went to pick up my equipment for internet service the next day would be an understatement. This particular internet shop had this very clever digital waiting list that showed the first name of who was next to be served. I was delighted to realize that I had arrived while a majority of the staff was at lunch. Oh well, I had 45 minutes to my appointment at the leasing office of my new apartment. I sat down at the table and waited for my turn. Not long after I settled myself, another woman walked in and started looking around wildly. Somehow she caught my eye and asked if I was in line. I nodded and pointed at the tablet she was standing in front of and told her to put her name down. She looked around wildly for a few minutes before putting her name down and stepping fully into the store. There were clusters of people around, and this lady wandered over to every cluster that wasn't being helped by an associate, attempting to group people together who were not together. She tried to convince a poor woman across the store that she was in fact there with me for several minutes. My sleep-deprived brain decided to laser focus on this lady because I knew something was about to happen. She was too aggressive to accept her place in the line. She finally stalks up to a register where an associate is helping a different customer and thrusts an Ethernet cable at him.
"Do you remember me? It still won't work."
The entitled woman shouted this at the employee. She was maybe 2 or 3 feet away from this poor man and actually elbowed the customer aside. He stuttered an apology to the customer he was helping and turned to the cabinet behind him and thrust a brand new cable at her. But this woman wasn't satisfied though. No, someone had to take the old cable and dispose of it for her. Luckily, one of the other employees had come back from break and apparently had some guts in him, because she said, "Ma'am, you can throw your own cable away." She had to repeat herself because the harpy took several seconds to refocus on the new target. She got to skip the line. She harassed some people. She should be ready to go, right? No, of course not. They simply had to dispose of the cable for her immediately. Also, a side note, there is no way she would have thrown away the new cord. It was nicely coiled and it looked brand new. The old one was floppy and gray. I shifted and forced my spine to straighten, fixating on her with the kind of stare only someone deprived of sleep, the way parents are with infants, and loudly screamed, "Hey lady, you've harassed everyone here, gotten what you wanted, and skipped the line we've all been waiting in. Get out. I have another appointment at 2 and you're slowing things down for the rest of us." After that, she turned and left without another word. I did apologize to the associate for yelling like that, but I have no regrets. I hope her internet is forever slow and her Netflix always buffers. It is so good to see this kind of Karen karma come slamming down on someone who deserved it. This lady cut in line just to make a scene, and that is so disrespectful. That's awesome that the original poster had the guts to stand up and say, "You know what? Enough is enough. It is time for you to go." And I will also note that it is awesome having a coworker who would stand up and say, "Hey, throw away your own cord." Because honestly, that's all you have to do. The floppy gray one that this lady was swinging around this store like a dead fish very easily could be thrown into any trash can. More specifically, in her own trash can. So to act like this is some kind of travesty, as if you can't take care of this yourself, is just really weird. So thankfully, this Karen got what she deserved, and I also agree with the original poster. I hope for the sake of her being so entitled that her internet is constantly slow for the rest of eternity. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen demanded me to change the recipe for some cookies. And when I told her that we haven't changed the recipe in over 30 years, she freaked out and demanded a refund. Here's what happened. I'm a 24
24-year-old male working in a Jewish bakery. And a little spoiler if you want to call it that, the recipe in question was the same recipe it's always been for the past 30 years since the bakery's been running. For the past 3 years I've worked at this place. This was what I was told. And with that, here's what happened. The incident in question happened an hour prior to me posting this. But before we get to that, let's go back about 1 week. Last week, I received a phone call somewhere about an hour before closing time. I answered the phone, and on the other end of the line was a very unhappy customer.
Hi, are you the owner of this place?
I answered and said no. She then responds by saying,
Well, tell the owner that this cookie I bought from you guys is just absolutely awful.
For reference, this type of cookie is a soft Jewish cookie with fruit filling in the middle, or at least that was how I interpreted it. I replied asking what was wrong with it, and she said,
You guys must have changed something with this recipe. My sister is a chef. We know what it should taste like, and this isn't it.
I told her that it's been the same recipe for 30 years, but she was still not believing me for a second. Before I could get the rest out, she then said,
My sister will come over next week for a refund. And you better explain what's going on.
I complied, and that was that. Fast forward to present day. So here I was, preparing today's order and slicing bread. Then in came this entitled Karen's sister. She looked to be reaching her late 60s or early 70s. She had that friendly appearance, but she was far from friendly, which I was about to find out. She stood there, tapping her fingers on the counter, and I asked, How can I help you? And she immediately barked at me, saying,
Oh, you know, you're nasty cookie tasted like garbage. My sister called a week ago, and she demands to know what is going on. You changed the recipe, didn't you?
I told her the exact same thing I told her sister the week prior, and just like her sister, she didn't believe me for a second.
No, you changed something, I am sure of it. You tell the new owner to use the original recipe. I've been coming here for 30 years, and we know what it should taste like, and this isn't it.
Me being a non-confrontational person by nature, decided to just let her have her way and gave her a refund. Honestly, it was $6 and it was worth it. Before she left, she again reminded me to tell the boss to change back to the original recipe. So eventually, my boss arrives and I tell him the story, and he and I shared a good laugh, and he tells me that this person always says that whenever she comes in here. In the 3 years I've worked here, I know for a fact my boss never changed it, because he has said many times that it would confuse him if he did any alterations. So I know he's telling the truth. All in all, that's a Karen experience I won't soon forget. Some people are clearly very passionate about cookies. How crazy do you have to be to buy a cookie and be like, oh my god, they changed the recipe, and then confront some poor hourly worker and be like, give me my money back? Like, that's another level of unhinged crazy that you don't get to see very often. I feel really bad for this original poster because they took it like a champ and just said, here, just take the $6, please. The silver lining though is that this guy now knows who to look out for and can keep an eye out to try and push a new person up to deal with this crazy Karen when she comes up demanding money back for the cookies. My entitled coworker waited for hours for my shift to end, so I would drive her home even after I said no. I work at a library, and I work in the children's department along with older coworkers, with some teenage employees scattered in the mix. I've been working there since high school, which is how I know Sarah. That's not her real name. To put it bluntly, Sarah and I are not friends. We used to be friendly back in high school, as we had a couple of the same friends, and we've been working at our job for years. I would definitely not call us friends currently though, due to Sarah's attitude. She's that type of person who will ask for a favor, and if you refuse, she will treat you like garbage and act like a complete jerk. Once in high school, she asked me for a ride home, but I said no, as I had a track meet and something that day and obviously could not take her. She huffed and stormed off, glaring at me for like a week before she came back like nothing had happened and asked me for a ride home again. It's clear too that she doesn't really see us as friends, as when we work together, she'll ignore me completely or just glare at me, only talking to me if it's something that involves her job or if it's something that she needs. If she needs something from me, then suddenly we're best friends again and she'll chat with me like nothing happened. So yeah, I don't really like her. To the main story, I came to work yesterday at about 2:30 and Sarah was there. Our shifts alternate slightly, where there's like an hour
hour where the two of us are both working before she leaves, and I continue my shift. I hadn't seen her since we graduated, so we spent a few minutes catching up. She then asked me if I could take her home after her shift ended. I was obviously confused, as I still had hours to go before I was done with mine, and I even told her this. She then implied that I could use my break time to drive her, and I honestly laughed out loud because I thought she was joking. For reference, our breaks are about 15 minutes long, and it would take 30 minutes to drive there and back from her home without traffic. In fact, realistically, it would end up taking like 45 to 60 minutes because of how heavy traffic is in our area. And also, who wants to spend their time driving someone home? Sarah was shockingly not joking though, claiming that it would be doable and that she really needed the ride because she had to be home and her mom couldn't take her. I said no, sorry, but no way that's happening. Sarah stormed off and ignored me for the rest of her shift, all before she left. Or at least that's what I thought she did. I didn't think much more of the situation, and in fact, I was a little amused at her audacity, but whatever. Eventually, my time to leave comes up, so I wave bye to my coworkers and I head outside. That's when I see Sarah sitting outside on one of the benches. She immediately perked up after seeing me, running over while I just looked at her. "You're leaving, right? Can you give me a ride?" I was so shocked. I flat out asked her if she had been waiting for practically 4 hours for me to leave, even after I said no. She said that no, she walked to our nearby town to do other things before she came back here, but in my opinion, that still counts as her waiting for me to give her a ride. I was creeped out and honestly incredibly angry, since it felt like to me that she was trapping me and playing the "you're leaving so you can take me too" card. It took everything in me not to yell or even book it to my car. I calmly told her that I had plans after work and that no, I could not take her, and honestly thought it was insane that she would just wait around and assume that I would take her instead of getting the message and calling someone else. She just stared at me, and I think she was a bit shocked that I actually stood up to her. With that, I walked to my car and drove off. I really hope she never tries to do that to me or any of my coworkers ever again. This Sarah lady really thought she had it all figured out. She thought she could wait around and try and trap you into driving her home, instead of, I don't know, calling an Uber, calling someone to pick her up, walking home. 4 hours have passed. Does she have nothing else to do? If I was in the original poster situation, I 100% would have reported her to the head librarian. This is straight up workplace harassment. This is not okay. This is also not high school anymore. These types of behaviors and actions have consequences. And the fact that you are being stalked out in the parking lot by this lady to say, "Hey, give me a ride home," is absolutely crazy and absolutely not acceptable. You told her no, and that should have been the end of it. So good for you for sticking up for yourself and telling her to get lost. And the next time you go into work, tell your boss exactly what happened, because this behavior is unacceptable and it's not something you should ever deal with. My girlfriend went to a concert with her coworkers and claimed it was a work event. My girlfriend and I have been together for 3 years and have a solid relationship. We recently moved in together not too long ago. She has a coworker that she claims to not like and complains about how cringy and inappropriate he can be. This coworker was hired at the same time as her in a student placement program. They share an office and collaborate on quite a bit of work. She has work events pretty often, just because of the field she is in. Dinners, charity events, stuff like that. After the last event, she came home with one of those quick sketch pictures you can get at places like Disney World, depicting her as well as this coworker. She said they plan on putting it up in their office. She talks often about this coworker, sometimes speaking positively, but mostly speaking negatively about him. He posts pictures often and gets her to take the photos for him all the time at work, and mentions her on his social media quite a bit. He paid an Instagram account $50 to post a picture with a custom message to her. Now my girlfriend comes home and says she has a dinner and concert to go to this weekend, and that she is going with this coworker and the company has paid for it. I thought it sounded weird, but I just accepted it. The next night, she is on the phone with her friend, and I hear that the company didn't pay for the concert tickets and that he had spared a ticket and invited her. She told her friend on the phone that it sucks she has to go with him and that she'll just go and do her own thing. She was fully aware I heard this conversation. I'm definitely not the jealous type, but I actually feel concerned about this situation. This coworker is single and she's told me before he is actively looking for a relationship. I feel like he has a crush on her, given everything he is doing. Should I see this as a problem for my relationship, and how should I approach this situation with my girlfriend? I hate to be the guy to jump to conclusions, but it really sounds like
like she is lying about the nature of their relationship. Like, this totally sounds like a date. I hope I'm not crazy in saying that. She is going with another coworker who is also a man that has a crush on her, as well as going to dinner with this coworker, all in the same night. Like, there's very clearly more to this story that she is just not telling you. And it's not fair for you at all. Like, it seems like the original poster in this situation is being very naive. This guy is not her friend. This guy also spent $50 to have a message sent out to this lady over Instagram. Like, you don't do that unless there's some kind of ulterior motive. Like, you shouldn't be spending money posting messages about someone else's significant other. That's just weird. So in my opinion, this guy is not just a friend. I think there's a lot more going on based on what you're describing. And if I were you, I would definitely put my foot down about this whole situation and say, hey, I know you're lying about the concert. I know for a fact your company's not paying for this. And I have suspicions that you're slowly cheating on me with your cringy coworker who you swear you don't like. Which, by the way, it kind of seems like she does. All of the red flags are quite literally in front of you. And I really hope you're able to see them and act on them, because you deserve a lot better than this. My girlfriend of 4 years has been uninvited to my brother's wedding by his fiancé. My 4-year relationship has been rocky the last 6 months. We're still living together, but she's been uninvited to my brother's wedding next month, even though I'm the best man. Last summer, my girlfriend and I bought a house together, and things were absolutely perfect. We lived with each other at our parents' houses during the COVID pandemic, and so it wasn't anything new. Most likely, it sped up the decision for us to buy a house together, as it worked really well living together. In the months leading up to the next moving date, we knew a puppy was on the way from my girlfriend's family dog. Within 2 days of moving in, we also had a puppy. She's a great dog, and I love her to bits. For the next few months, things were swimmingly. We were decorating the house and generally very excited with this huge lifestyle change. Fast forward a few months around November time, and I noticed things weren't quite right. There was far less affection, and she just wasn't her usual happy self. I picked up on this and tried to talk to her and support her. I knew she had been attending counseling sessions since before the summer so that she could try to deal with her and her mom's relationship. As a side note, her mom wasn't a very good parent when she was younger. No affection, little support, and generally just not very kind. We spoke about all of this, and she was finding everything a little heavy and difficult and was trying to get through it. I was very supportive and tried to just generally help out a bit more around the house, just to try and cheer her up. Unfortunately, things kept going downhill, and by Christmas, she has basically said to me she didn't know what she wanted. She was unsure about her career as well as me. This was a massive shock to me, but I kept being supportive and helping her, as I still thought there was a chance things could work out. Over the next few months, I carried on supporting her, making dinner, washing up, just generally helping out, as I knew she was very stressed and struggling with her job. I even helped her change her career. She never really enjoyed nursing, and did it predominantly because it's what her mom wanted rather than what she wanted. Through all of this, I felt it was quite a hostile environment. We were sleeping in separate rooms, and there was next to no physical connection, maybe the occasional hug. It didn't really feel friendly anymore. I was finding it extra tough that the dog was getting so much attention and myself none. This had been going on for about 6 months. It finally got to the point where I couldn't really see things changing, and I told her this about a month ago. Both of us were very upset with this, but to me, it wasn't a situation I wanted to carry on living with. The next day, she came back to me saying she knows exactly what she wants now, and she's 100% in. Obviously, I was very skeptical about this. However, over the next week or so, I did see huge improvements in friendliness and effort. The last few weeks, things have been okay. There was a little dip when I went to the pub and forgot about my dog's dinner, which I fully accepted that it was my fault and that a dog is a huge responsibility. My mistake, genuinely. At the moment, things are still on the rise, but my thinking is as long as I'm happy and not down about it, it doesn't really matter. Things may not always work out, but I'm quite comfortable with my current situation. I'm very close with my parents and siblings as well as their partners. In fact, my family is very close-knit, often going on holidays together, as well as my girlfriend attending with us over the last few years. Because I have such a supportive family, I'm very grounded. My outlook on life is that it will be alright, and
can work out somehow. I've spoken to my parents throughout this, and they've always said they'll support the both of us no matter what happens, which I'm very lucky about. I told them that things were on the up, but still quite rocky. It's my brother's wedding next month, and I'm the best man. Throughout this, he's been very good to me, offering to help out financially if we need to sell the house or anything along those lines. When I wasn't sure what was happening, he said the place for my girlfriend was there, and it didn't matter if she came or didn't. I was very grateful for this, as I didn't want to cause any annoyance in what I know is a stressful period for them. So come last night, my girlfriend got a text from my brother's fiancé, basically saying she was uninvited from the wedding due to the current situation between myself and my girlfriend. I was very taken aback by this, since as far as I was concerned, the place was available and I had not heard any different. The only thing I can think of that would explain this sudden decision is when the last time my brother and I spoke about my situation, he offered to help out if we needed to sell the house. I was quite worried to say that things were on the up and up again, in case it fell apart again. I wanted to see where things were going before telling the world just in case. My extended family is also very close. My girlfriend has met them at all of our parties and then some, and so I know come the big day, I will be bombarded with questions from my family basically asking why my girlfriend's not with me today. I know it's their special day, and so it's up to no one but them to decide who to invite. I'm just feeling a little bit conflicted and so confused as I don't know what I want or how things will work out. This entire situation is just really messy, and I genuinely don't know what to do. It is incredibly insulting for this brother to suddenly allow his fiancé to uninvite this original poster's girlfriend, all because they're having issues. Like, how is that anybody's business? That's so disgusting. The original poster also goes on to say that he has not texted back his brother after finding out that his girlfriend was uninvited to their wedding. And honestly, I'm really kind of annoyed by that. This is an urgent situation. You need to figure this out like immediately. Like, stop what you're doing and call them and get clarification. Because from my perspective, it seems like she got uninvited for little to no reason. It sounds like the original poster kind of implied like, hey, things have been rough, but it's getting better. And they must have taken it as some kind of like toxic relationship, and they're probably like uninviting her so there's no drama at their wedding, but there's no drama to be accounted for. So it's like, what? It seems like this couple that are getting married got ahead of themselves without knowing all the facts. If I was the original poster, I'd be very upset over this. This is my girlfriend you're uninviting, and I'm the best man. Like, what are you doing? Personally, I would first get a lot of details about why my girlfriend's not allowed to be at this wedding, and then depending on that conversation would determine if I'm still going to be the best man. You can't expect the original poster to just drop his girlfriend of 4 years out of his life for this special day and expect it to be normal. Like, that's super inappropriate. He bought a house with this lady. It's not like he's not going to see her again, and he can't just cut things off like that. That's ridiculous. So yeah, if I was the original poster, I would have texted about this yesterday. There's no way I would have let this simmer and just kind of go where it is now, because I need details and I need it fast. Because as far as I'm concerned, they're trying to cut my girlfriend out of this special occasion, when previously we've all shared our moments together, from family outings to all sorts of things. So I would get details quick, and I would get them today. My entitled mother steals all the money I got for my 18th birthday party, and I could not be more upset. First, a bit of background. I was born a quiet child. By the time I was a few weeks old, I'd sleep through the night, wouldn't cry, and to keep me entertained, I'd just be left on a pile of cushions with sensory toys my grandma made for hours on end. My mother divorced her first husband because he couldn't have kids, and got pregnant with me, her first child, as soon as she met my father. Yet she quickly ran out of interest for me, and my grandparents, her parents, quickly took over for most of the parenting duties. My father tried his best while working night shifts. My neurological development was a lot faster than my motor ones, and as such, I talked very quickly. I learned to read at 5, but it took me longer than most kids to properly walk. Very quickly, I became a quiet child, preferring the company of books and notebooks to just about anything else. This would become, by the way, in my mother's book, signs that I was a defective child. Yet she was too busy cheating on my father to do anything about it besides being a terrible parent. Eventually, divorce ensued, a stepfather took my dad's place, and would treat me terribly on a regular basis, until I learned how to scream to make him get away from me because the neighbors would know. From this point on, my mother started to play a destructive game. She would behave like the perfect mother on the outside, but there would be a constant nightmare waiting for me when I'd get home. In the meantime, she had 2 other kids, my brother, or so we believe, who's 3 years younger than me, as well as my stepsister. Both kids are treasured as normal kids, while I am told told I'm a waste of space, time, and oxygen behind closed doors. Fast forward to my 18th birthday. Birthday parties were a thing because she would invite parents and show how perfect of a mother she was. The minute they were gone, I'd be chastised for eating cake and not wanting to find a boyfriend, and presents would end up in my siblings' rooms. So, my 18th birthday, my friends were all having big parties I was invited at, so my mother went all overboard with doing a big garden party. But she decided I wasn't good enough to be celebrated on my own, so she made it a 15th birthday party for my brother and a 10th birthday party for my stepsister. The day of the party comes, and one after the other, I notice that the only thing they talk about are my siblings' birthdays. Not one wished me a happy birthday. I quickly realized that no one was told it was my birthday too. Actually, nobody even knew. One of my stepfather's sister-in-laws learned about it and confirmed that she wasn't told it was mine too. She was a very opinionated woman and was outraged, so she took it upon herself to inform the guests about the situation, and before I knew it, she was collecting cash from people voluntarily to give to me to try and make up for it. As you can imagine, the party then took a sour turn, but at the end of the day, she gave me an envelope full of cash. It was hundreds of dollars, but to me, it looked like it was a lot. She told me to go use that money and spend time with my friends, and I was honestly, utterly, and completely in absolute disbelief. My entitled mother, after accusing me of ruining the party, found out about it and took it from me. She said it would help pay for my driver's license. Keep in mind also that I have not received any Christmas presents for 2 years now, under the same excuse that she's saving up for my driver's license. A couple of weeks later, I asked about said driver's license, and her answer was, "Well, you better get a job to fund it because I'm not paying a cent towards it." Now, this all happened about a few years ago. Shortly after this event, I got a job at Disneyland Paris so that I could live there in Disney housing and away from her. I did come back for Christmas, mainly for my grandparents, and she pulled off another one of her tricks there. As I was desperate back then to earn her love, I bought her an insanely expensive perfume that basically cost me 1/4 of my pay. She took my brother's then girlfriend for an expensive shopping trip, buying her clothes, lingerie, chocolates, beauty products, jewelry, and she got me a dollar store clock with the price still attached to it. The following year, she took her good children on a vacation and took a local girl who was underprivileged with them. She guilt-tripped me into joining them for a few days, and the four of them had a blast humiliating me in public spaces, making me feel unworthy and completely useless. They would cover my food with salt, cut short any conversation I would try and partake in, making me feel guilty for not being financially able to take them all to eat in a gourmet restaurant. And she even had the audacity to tell me that she would happily swap me with the underprivileged girl anytime. I cut short the stay and I left. One day, a few months later, my grandmother took me aside as I was staying with them, and she told me in these exact words, "Listen, I am ashamed of her and I wonder every day where we went wrong with her. Your grandfather and I, our lives are just as good as over, but yours is just starting, and if you don't walk away for good, she's going to ruin you." I left the following day and moved to North Carolina. My entitled mother trashed me on social media, calling me selfish. I blocked her in every way possible. I now live with my best friend. I am in therapy and undergoing treatment for severe anxiety, depression, and complex PTSD. And I'm taking life one day at a time while working to open my own business soon, all the while thankful that I am away from my entitled mother. The mom in this story is absolutely disturbing. I mean, I'm so happy for this original poster that they were able to get away from her, but the trash they had to navigate through just to get where they're at is really sad, and it's something that they absolutely did not deserve. That birthday party sounded like an absolute nightmare. I can't imagine having my own birthday and not only having to share it with my siblings, whose birthdays are on different days, but then when the family tries to come together and provide some semblance of a birthday gift in money, she takes it away and never gives it back. I don't blame them for a second for moving away, and I think the fact that they took their grandparents' advice to heart is the best thing they've ever done. And hopefully they have peace in their life and they never have to put up with that terrible entitled mother ever again. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for wanting to get away from my terrible father, despite my supposed positive upbringing that he claims? I don't normally like posting sensitive topics regarding family, or anything for that matter, but considering how my situation seems to get worse by day, I genuinely don't know what to do, and at this point, I'm just looking for some advice. To give a window into my life, I am a 24-year-old male
female with separated parents, and I'm the oldest sibling. I have one younger full-blooded sister and other half-siblings. I'm going to college but also work in retail, and I live rent-free with my father, his wife, and half-siblings. My father is a hard-headed individual who to some will say that it's his way or the highway. We live in a single-story house with some quality features, like a spacious house, a fridge full of food, large property with dogs, and a family-owned business on site. Now, I understand I'll probably get chewed out for complaining about living rent-free, getting free food, etc., all while going to school and working while others have it much harder than me. But please hear me out. Throughout my life, I've done what I could to stay on my father's good side, all for the sake of my family, appreciating what I was given, and of course living up to his expectations. I worked hard to get A's and B's throughout my school life, graduating high school with honors, respecting my elders no matter what they said, and doing my best to look like a golden child in the eyes of others to boost my father's social standing. Whenever we had guests over, I was expected to talk and mingle, and whether we were out and about or at home, I was expected to be at my father's beck and call. If he whistled for me, I was expected to show up to his room ready to receive orders or answer questions, like a dog on command. Now, to some, it seems like the near perfect life. Sure, my parents were separated, but I lived a life with a roof over my head, food on the table, clothes on my back, and then some. But it honestly wasn't all sunshine and gumdrops. As I said before, I was and still am expected to follow my father's expectations to the T, but no one bats 1,000, and I sure as heck made mistakes along the way. Simply being who I am is already a strike in his eyes, as my father's vision of me and my life was always to finish school, looking trim and fit, while getting a beautiful girlfriend, owning a house, starting a family, and taking over the family business, or at least starting my own successful one. He also expects me to enjoy all of his hobbies like sports, going out socially, and having people see me as this overall perfect individual living the American dream. I don't fit his mold at all, as I've yet to leave home, I'm overweight, I don't have a relationship and I never have had one, I work in retail, and I enjoy my time watching anime, collecting figures and cards, and playing video games. I absolutely hate social gatherings, family or otherwise, because I don't like speaking with others and simply enjoy my small inner circle of a few friends, as well as my sister, whom I couldn't live without. Ever since I was little, anytime I did something that went against my father's wishes, I would get scolded for not doing as he said. Whether it was something small like leaving my socks on the living room floor, or something big like stolen money or hiding something like report cards and the like, I was greeted with these awful punishments, sometimes without warning and sometimes worse than just a scolding, if you know what I mean. As a side note, I want it on the record that anything lower than a B on my grades, even if it was still passing, was never good enough for him, and rather than finding ways to help me improve, I was always greeted with punishment, which admittedly only made things worse for me. As I got older, the more intense punishments got put to rest, but that hasn't stopped him from destroying my already non-existent self-esteem. My father also makes it a constant habit that because my sister and I are overweight, to ridicule us because of our waist size. What really boils my blood is that given the situation, he will most undoubtedly bring it up in front of others simply to get a laugh or to boost that ego of his. Unfortunately, my sister gets it worse as far as the weight thing, because she's a girl and is expected to look beautiful or she'll never be pretty enough for a man, and I wish she didn't have to deal with it. Luckily, she's moved out and doesn't deal with it on a daily basis like I do. Despite his own gut, my father has always had the need to fat shame, call people nicknames that to some are hurtful, and even criticize certain lifestyles or people who aren't married but live together, and I've always hated him for that. I've even refused to bring some of my friends over because some are a bit on the heavy side, and I don't want to hear him bash them simply because they're big. I love my friends and I hate it when someone badmouths them, especially for how they look. I work hard at my job, and when I finally come home, how I choose to spend my downtime should be my choice entirely, whether it's enjoying my hobbies, hanging with friends, or simply sleeping the day away. But I'm constantly on high alert for my father because I don't want to be fat shamed for just making myself a meal or being called a useless good-for-nothing because I barricade myself in my room away from others to refrain from being a burden. That's what I do no matter what. I do what I can so I don't have to be anyone's burden, but obviously it's impossible. But I try anyway. I want to also point out that while I don't pay rent or any bills, I'm still responsible for vehicle upkeep, my phone, and I pay for my own food so I don't
don't have to rely on my family as much. As I've said before, I want to finally leave to start my life how I want without his constant stifling. But with being in school, a job in retail, and the US's horribly rising cost of living, I don't see it happening anytime soon. I'm also very afraid of even going out on my own, or even with roommates, as I was never taught anything about survival in the world, like finances and the like. But that hasn't stopped my father from constantly asking when I'm going to finally grow up. I feel stuck with virtually nowhere to go, with the constant thought that at the drop of a hat, my father could kick me out and I wouldn't know what to do from there. My sister already has her hands full as it is with her life, so I don't want to add to it, even if I try and pull my weight. And one thing I forgot to mention is that my mother is still in the picture, but lives very far away, and again, has her own problems to deal with, so I don't want to burden her as well. So basically, in my opinion, my father has always chastised me for the life I'm living now, even though in his eyes I had the perfect childhood. But from my perspective, I see it as far from that as possible, and want to finally be rid of the constant down-talking. So please, help me out here. Am I the jerk for wanting to get away from him and live my own life? You are absolutely not the jerk in this situation for wanting to get out and be on your own and be your own man. Sounds like your father's a piece of garbage. I think there are some solid steps you can take so that you can be ready to live on your own. There are a lot of free resources online that can walk you through how to live on your own, from taxes to finances to groceries to finding a place to live to finding roommates who are respectable and people you can actually be okay living with. There's a lot of opportunities there. My honest suggestion is to save money now. And based on the way your father is treating you, I would not tell him about your plans of wanting to move out and cut him off, because it sounds like he really would kick you out of his house at the drop of a hat, and you really would be on your own trying to figure out what to do. So it's better to have a game plan now, so when you do move out, you know exactly how to handle everything. Even if everything gets taken away from you, having a plan of action of how to get around with public transportation, as well as how to find a place to live or where to go if you do get kicked out, will be very valuable information for you to use in the off chance that you need it. Regardless of what happens, I really am sorry for the upbringing you've had to endure. It must have been miserable being treated like that, and I can only imagine being at your father's beck and call at the drop of a hat. I mean, how obnoxious is that? Hopefully things work out for you, and hopefully you're able to devise a plan so that you can be ready to move out and live on your own, if that is indeed what you want to do. My soon-to-be wife has ADHD, and honestly, it's burning me out. First, some background. My fiancé and I live together, and we have been engaged for over a year. We also dated for several years prior. She bought the house, we both work full-time, and the issue at hand is the fact that my soon-to-be wife has ADHD. I am honestly at my wit's end when it comes to the household chores, projects, and most importantly, time. Both my fiancé and I work full-time 9 to 5, but it's after work when the issues start to rise up. When I get home, I like to have a few minutes of downtime before starting on the home chores and projects. And then I like to stop at around 8 o'clock to eat dinner, clean up dishes, and do things like card games, video games, spending time together, whatever. My fiancé, however, goes straight from work to chores and won't stop doing chores or projects until she drops. Typically, she even skips lunch at work, and then after work will do chores and projects until 10 o'clock at night, where she only then eats something unhealthy. And then once we have reset the house by putting away all the dishes, cleaning the countertops, and then some, by that point it's 11 o'clock at night, so I only have the energy to lay on the couch, watch an episode of TV, and then we both go to bed. I feel completely overworked and like my entire life is being steamrolled by her, and I am stuck in a bind. If I want to spend any time with her whatsoever, I have to help out. I don't mind the work, really. I pull my own weight, and I have single-handedly done some major projects to improve her house. There are even chores that are 100% mine. However, she will often go back and do them again even after I have done them, and I don't halfway do anything. I cannot keep going like this. Every weekday, I wake up, go to work, come home, work all night, and then go to sleep. Sometimes we agree to stop at a certain time, but it doesn't really help. Most often,
often she blows past that time and then does a bunch of other things while I'm sitting around waiting on her to finish. And then by the time she is done, it is already close to 11 again, and neither of us have any energy to do anything productive anymore. She tells me that I don't have to help and that I should just do what I want and let her do her own thing, but I cannot sit back and let her do everything. I know having a house is a joint effort, and she also gets mad at me if I don't help enough. She complains she doesn't have any hobbies or friends. I don't know what to tell her other than no duh, you don't do anything fun. You literally work all day and then work all night. She tells me, just tell me when to stop and I'll stop. But when she is in the moment, there is no stopping her. This is affecting just about every aspect of our life. She agrees with this, but does nothing to attempt to rectify the problem. We have had multiple sit-downs and discussions where we reach a resolution, but the resolutions never get implemented. She promises things will change. She admits it's a problem and doesn't want to be like that, but she doesn't actually do anything to stop it. I, on the other hand, have been spending tons of money and time trying to help her, but nothing works, and I get no appreciation. The more I do, the more work gets put on me, and now I find myself doing the same stuff. I hardly ever do the things I like to do anymore because it's too late and I'm too tired. We've tried organizing all the tasks we want done in a particular day and sticking to only those, but honestly, it doesn't help. She just keeps going. We've tried picking a hard limit of when we're going to stop, but she consistently blows past it by at least an hour and a half. I then propose a stopping time of 1.5 hours prior to the real stopping time, but she blows past both of those and just keeps going. It's like she literally can't do anything other than work between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And don't even get me started on the weekends. I am seeking advice from other people who have dealt with similar situations on how to cope with this. General chore and labor division strategies aren't really what I am looking for since she doesn't follow them. How do you deal with someone who wants to change, says they will change, asks for help in order to change, but then does everything not to change? It sounds like your wife needs to see a doctor. This is really not normal behavior. To clean your house again and again and again, day after day, sounds incredibly obsessive. And that does not sound normal. And honestly, it's a little concerning. I think seeing a doctor and explaining to them, hey, my wife cleans the house obsessively every day of the week, and what you've described is not normal. I don't know of anybody who does a deep clean of their house every night, all night. That's crazy to me. So if she really does have ADHD, and if she's exhibiting signs that are probably similar to that, or if you even think that she has that, I would probably go to her and be like, hey, I think medication might be the solution here, or at least one of the solutions we can try that might help the situation. If anything, the doctor can at least point you guys in the right direction of what to do, because this is a type of behavior that is just not normal in my opinion. So I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully you're able to figure this one out, because this definitely sounds like a mess. My girlfriend just found out that she's pregnant and wants to break up with me and raise the child alone. My girlfriend and I have been dating for almost 9 months. Things have been going great and I'm very much in love. Recently, she introduced me to her kids. She has a 19-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 11-year-old. I've been getting to know them and they're all fantastic. 2 weeks ago, she cancels plans out of the blue and sends a text message saying she wants to break up. I start racking my brain, trying to figure out what could have possibly happened, and I can't come up with anything. We had just spent the evening before together and everything was great. I finally get a hold of her and she tells me she's pregnant and doesn't know what to do. I'm secretly thrilled because I've always wanted kids and I know she's a great mom, but I just tell her that I'll support whatever she decides and that I'm here for her. But she gets even more upset because she says we haven't known each other for long enough to have a baby and she needs to also worry about the kids she already has. That itself is completely valid, but I also know that she had a very awful and terrible childhood, and I know what's weighing on her as well. She's been very intent on taking things very slow, which I understand and I have been fine with. Finally, after almost 2 weeks, she text messaged me again, saying she's going to keep the baby but doesn't want me involved. I'm absolutely floored right now, and I don't even know how to respond. Ideally, we would stay together and raise the baby together. If she didn't want to keep it or didn't want to stay together, I know I would just have to accept it. But for her to have the
baby and not let me be involved at all? I'm just supposed to have a kid out there and I'm not allowed to see it? I understand she's scared, but that doesn't seem fair. I want to be respectful because I know this is a stressful time for her, but I'm not going to just say okay and promise to walk away. Honestly, I have no idea what to do. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but is she maybe cheating on you? That is honestly the first thing that came to mind for me. I immediately thought, oh, this kid is not his. Because the way she's acting is really weird. Like, wouldn't you want the man who is going to be this kid's father involved in that kid's life? Why would you suddenly say, nope, it's my baby, you can't see it. We're breaking up, see ya. And worst of all, this came out of nowhere. Like, she was so happy. It's like her getting pregnant was the very thing that she did not want, and that was enough for her to immediately dump you. I don't know about you, but that just seems super suspicious. Like, why would you do that suddenly out of nowhere just because you're pregnant? I mean, it's not like she didn't think you were good boyfriend material because she introduced her kids to you, and you were making an effort to get to know them, to be more involved in their life to some degree. So the assumption that she couldn't trust you, to me, just doesn't make sense, because introducing your boyfriend to your kids is a very special moment, and that, in my opinion, is a big sign of trust. So why is it all of a sudden that she doesn't want him involved now that a new child is introduced into the mix? My first thought is that she's cheating, but hopefully that's not the case. Whatever happens, I wish you the best of luck in navigating this, and if you truly are not able to see this kid, and it is your kid after all, then I'm really sorry for how things went down. But hopefully things work out and you're able to be involved in this kid's life. An entitled Karen's son steals my Game Boy, all because he claims that he deserves it. First, some background information. My dad has a nice collection of vintage consoles from when he was in his 20s. Since he didn't use the consoles that much, he gave me a few of those consoles. I mostly used the Game Boy Color because I loved playing Pokemon Crystal on it. This story took place about a few years ago. I was at a Dave & Buster's, which is an arcade I love to visit still to this day, when I saw a little boy snatching those cards that Dave & Buster uses for games, and I didn't really do anything about it since it wasn't my business and karma would catch up with him soon enough. Once I was done playing with the Game Boy, I was about to get up so I could get my card to play some of the games, but I was quickly stopped by some entitled Karen.
Excuse me, young man. Stop right there.
I looked at her and said, hi, how can I help you? Like every Karen known in existence, she used her classic let me see your manager voice. She says,
yes, you can help me. Give my son your game guy toy thing you have.
I was kind of shocked when she said this, so all I could say was, excuse me? She looked at me and said,
you heard me, young man. Give my son the game guy.
At this point, I realized she was talking about my Game Boy. I said to her, and why should I do that? She said,
well, my son has behaved for the last month, and I'm trying to find the perfect gift for him.
The fact that she was calling it a game guy annoyed me beyond belief. So I said, sorry ma'am, but I'm not just giving my Game Boy away.
Oh, all right. How about 40?
I didn't know what she meant, so I asked, what do you mean by 40? She then says,
$40 for your game guy. How is this so hard to understand?
I look at her and say, lady, a Game Boy costs a little over $100. And even if it did cost $40, I'm not selling it to you. The Karen went back to her kid and started talking to him. I just ignored it, put my Game Boy in my back pocket, and went to go get my card. I got it without any issues. So I went over to play a game. And while I was playing, I felt a bit of shuffling in my back pocket and heard small footsteps walking away from me. Can you guess what happened? I think you can. My Game Boy was gone. I instantly knew who was responsible for this. I don't get mad easily, but since the Game Boy was my dad's original one, I was furious, especially since it has my Pokemon game still in the Game Boy. I stormed over to the Karen, who was walking out of the arcade with her son. I shouted for the lady, and this entitled Karen looked shocked because I found out my Game Boy was missing. How dumb do you have to be to not notice a whole console going missing from your pocket? She says,
ugh, it's you. What do you want?
I say quite plainly, your little spawn of Satan just stole my Game Boy.
How dare you say that about my little angel?
I demanded her to give it back to me right now, but she says,
no, he deserves this.
I tried to take it back from the kid, but the Karen intervened and slapped me hard. I was completely in shock. I could not believe that that just happened. I looked at her and asked her what was wrong with her and why on earth she would do that when I'm just trying to get my console back. She said,
well, too bad. Your game guy is ours now.
I said, "Are you kidding me right now? That was my dad's Game Boy." She says,
So what? It's old and junky. He wouldn't care anyways.
"For your information, my dad loved to play on his Game Boy, and I'm pretty sure my dad would be flaming mad about this." I tried one last time to get the Game Boy away from this little demon child, and I actually got it, but only because this demon child's hands were very greasy. This entitled Karen then starts screaming at me, saying,
How dare you take that from him? I will be calling the police.
I just ignore them, hop on my bike, and head home. And if you thought that was it, well, you were terribly wrong. About an hour after I got home, I heard a knock on my door, and lo and behold, an officer was standing at my doorstep. And guess who was behind her? This entitled Karen and her demon child. The officer asked me if I had stolen an item, and it took tons of convincing for the officer to let me go. I had to show him my 5-year-old receipt for Pokemon Crystal. Once that was dealt with, the entitled Karen bothered me for a few days, but eventually gave up later. I still can't get over the fact that she called a Game Boy a game guy. Overall, I'm happy I got my Game Boy back, and I will hopefully never have to deal with that entitled Karen ever again. How terrible of a parent do you have to be to not only let your son steal something in plain sight, but also to then defend this child for taking this out of someone else's back pocket? The level of entitlement that goes into that is just absolutely ridiculous. As someone who played with a Game Boy back in the day, I would be incredibly upset if someone stole that from me. That has some serious sentimental value, and there's no way I would just let that go easily. So I don't blame this original poster for doing what it takes to get that console back, because Karens like this who actively try and steal from other people are probably some of the worst human beings you will ever deal with. My friend borrowed money from me a few months ago, and despite being asked several times, he has refused to pay me back. My friend borrowed money from me a few months ago when he had nothing. I even let him stay in our house because they really had nothing at the time. We were friends for 4 years now. We used to go together at different sidelines, such as photo shoots. When he was almost getting out of his loan from other people, I told him he could pay me later because I still did not need the money. I advised him to invest in equipment first, before doing anything, because he recently sold his camera in order to pay the loans and buy another money-earning equipment. I was expecting that he would not pull off some grand show of buying expensive parts, but he still did instead of buying entry-level parts and then paying me. He then went through with his stupid decisions and proceeded on buying something that he did not need, such as a gaming mouse, a second monitor, weapon skins on a game, and high-quality speakers. I was disappointed, but I did not pay much attention because I thought he would pay me in time. So I gave him a deadline, which is a month away, because I will need the money before July. Now that the deadline is over, he then blabbered on about how he was rejected by this girl, or how they had no money again, and went on telling me his personal problems instead of paying me. I got angry, and then he pulled off his habit of ignoring the messages of someone he doesn't want to interact with, which, by the way, is a typical scammer move. I feel like he was stepping on me and telling himself, "Oh, it's just my friend's money, I'll pay him next time." I really needed the money, and I feel bad for cutting ties with him. I also heard that he can't pay his electric bills and still owes money to other people, some amounts being far greater than mine. What should I do? You should never give this person money ever again. They clearly took completely advantage of you. You learned a valuable lesson to not give money to a leech, and that's honestly all this guy was. He was a leech on your wallet, and you do not need that in your life. To be honest, you're probably never going to see that money again, and I personally do not blame you for wanting to try and cut him out of your life. I mean, this is a huge breach of trust. You were there for that friend when they needed someone to talk to, and unfortunately, it looks like they played you really badly and got money out of you and then said, "See ya." So hopefully you learned a valuable lesson from this, and hopefully next time someone asks you for money, you think twice and make sure it's somebody who's actually going to pay you back. Today I messed up by being brutally honest with my girlfriend and causing my relationship to end. Let me start off by saying my girlfriend has major social anxiety problems and has met a lot of bad people in her life. She has had terrible exes and terrible friends. Before our relationship, we had been friends for several years. At some point, we liked each other and started dating. It was fine at first, but then she started to show me her insecure side. And by the way, she is extremely insecure. I promised her I would never leave her and always be by her side. However, in yesterday's argument, I asked her if she feels the same way about me, and she responds to me by saying,
"If there's a better person out there, then I'll go with them. Until that, it's you."
To say I was shocked would be an understatement. I was completely taken aback by that. I questioned her heavily, and her response was,
"Well, I know for a fact you'd do the same."
I assured her that I wouldn't do that, but she wouldn't change her stance. Then the argument kept getting worse and worse, and she ended up bringing up stuff from the past, calling me a liar as well as dishonest, implying that I was a disloyal person. She then proceeded to break up with me on her own accord and act childish when I tried to repair the situation. After this, I kept texting her to calm her down and think about this, but she blocked me on everything. She then unblocked me an hour later and started talking again. She asked me to tell her the truth about everything, so I did. So I went ahead and confessed something that normally you would think wouldn't be a big deal. I admitted that I found a certain celebrity attractive a long time ago and no more. She then got super upset and heartbroken at this fact and kept crying and crying. She said that since I liked this celebrity a long time ago, while I still liked her, that I was not loyal. She claimed that I would leave her if some attractive girl came up to me and asked me out. I responded to this by saying that this will never be the case and that I love her unconditionally. She then said she was gonna pass out and eventually did and went to sleep. I was desperate and frantic trying to fix the situation after that and texted her saying I'm sorry and explained how much I love her. And I said this just about every hour after she fell asleep. She woke up really early in the morning and simply replied with the letter K and has fallen asleep again. I'm honestly at a loss and I don't know how to fix this relationship. What should I do? I'm gonna be honest, your girlfriend sounds absolutely unhinged, and there is no way in the world I would put up with that for a second. Here's the thing with having a celebrity crush. It's not a real crush. That person will never meet you ever. So in my opinion, if you get upset over your significant other mentioning that a celebrity's attractive, then the problem's with you. They are literally commenting on someone that is unobtainable. They will never get with that person. And I personally think it's absolutely insane to try and extrapolate this type of confession about a celebrity as some kind of proof that your significant other is going to cheat on you. Because that's just not the case and it's just crazy. It sounds like you're trying to do everything to keep this relationship together, but in all honesty, I think you're going to be a lot better off without this lady because she's using her own social anxiety as well as her own insecurities to try and manipulate you. And genuinely, I think you can do a lot better than this. A girl I'm interested in dating keeps canceling our dates due to anxiety. What should I do? I met Sarah online and we clicked right away. Sarah is not her real name. We have a ton in common and we're both interested in each other. We went on a first date that went really well and she said she would be interested in a second date, but it's been a month and we've yet to go on that second date. 3 times now we've planned a date and she has backed out anywhere from a few hours to a day before. 2 times there were somewhat understandable excuses, but most recently she backed out without an excuse. When I asked if she simply was no longer interested, she reassured me that she was still interested. She said she was just overwhelmed due to some recent bad news, and she said her anxiety was getting the best of her. I have anxiety too, so I do understand the desire to cancel plans at times, but I'm also getting frustrated and feeling rejected. I have to initiate all of our text conversations and all of our plans. I even asked if she wanted me to stop asking her on dates, and she said no. She confirmed that she is still interested, but I'm feeling very conflicted. I know some will say I should just cut my losses and run, but I'm hesitant to let go of an otherwise great match. Does anyone have any advice for dating someone with this level of anxiety? Is there anything I can do to help her feel comfortable enough to actually follow through on our plans for a date? What should I do? I can totally understand where this original poster is coming from. You obviously found somebody who you really connect with and you really like, but Sarah keeps canceling and you don't want Sarah to cancel her plans. So now you're trying to figure out some kind of plan of like, hey, what do I do? How do I get her back on a date? I want to get to know her and spend time with her if she's willing. And from what she's saying, she says that she's willing, but her anxiety is just getting the best of her, which is understandable to an extent, but honestly, after a while, that's just going to hinder any future relationship. I know personally, I would be pretty frustrated after the 3rd time of trying to go out on a date with this girl, only for her to cancel for the 3rd time in a row. It is definitely disheartening to see that happen, and you never want that. So if it was me, I might have already moved on by this point, but it sounds like this guy wants to give it a try. So maybe you could just leave things up to her and see what happens. If she's in a good place and she feels like she has a good handle on her anxiety, maybe then she could reach out to you and try and get things going for another date. In the meantime, I don't think you should just wait around and see if she ever wants to come on a date with you again. Maybe look around and find someone else to go on a date with, but maybe just leave the ball in her court and see what happens. Either she's gonna come around and say, hey, yes, I want to date you, so let's give this another try for the 4th time. Or she's never going to call you back, and that is honestly the best answer you would ever want. At that point, you'll know for a fact she's not interested in you, and she was just being nice because of her anxiety. So hopefully you get that second date, and hopefully she doesn't cancel again for the 4th time. Today, I messed up by showing my daughter the movie Coraline without knowing what the plot is, and I think I may have traumatized her. This happened this weekend. My husband and I get to share credit on this one. We have a 5-year-old daughter, and we are always looking for movies we can enjoy watching with her. It's not easy to find something both tolerable for adults and engaging for kindergartners. We'll show her movies that we liked as kids, as well as some newer things. I always loved Tim Burton movies, and she really liked Nightmare Before Christmas. So when I saw a copy of Coraline at a yard sale, we thought it might be another one we could enjoy together. I'm not sure how familiar people are with these movies, but appearances are deceiving. Nightmare Before Christmas is an animated film about Halloween characters that try to take over Christmas celebrations. It's a PG movie and all the characters look scary, but are actually really nice. Coraline is a PG movie and the animation seemed really appealing. I got the sense from the cover that it was another movie with similar vibes to Nightmare Before Christmas, and I thought she might like it too. But oh man, I was wrong. It starts off okay with a young girl moving to a new apartment in an old house. Her parents are busy working and the neighbors are odd. She gets this doll with button eyes that looks like her and finds a secret door in the apartment. Next thing you know, she goes through the door and finds a parallel world. It's like hers, only better, and the people all have dolls with button eyes. It seems great, but it turns out that the other mother is an evil witch who traps children in her dimension. She convinces them to swap their eyes for buttons and then they can't leave. Once she traps them, she eats their souls. It was intense. Coraline tries to escape, but the other mother steals her parents. She has to try and get them back and find the eyes of the ghost children so they can be free. So as you can guess, my daughter watched this and freaked out. At first she was saying she was scared, and I tried to encourage her to keep watching. I did this a few times and told her that it's okay just to keep watching. I found that sometimes seeing the conclusion of something scary is better because it gives resolution to the fear. But not this one. We were halfway through and I'm genuinely feeling disturbed with the plot. I finally pull out my phone and read the full plot summary and realize that it's only going to get worse. I tell my husband that we absolutely messed up and we better shut it down now. My daughter starts having an anxiety attack and we turn it off and switch to something funny and familiar. Since then, she's had all sorts of nightmares about this movie and it's been relentless. We can only hope that we didn't mess up our kid by accident and try and look more into these movies in the future so we don't have a repeat of what just happened. That movie that's being described, by the way, is actually really scary. It is not meant for kids in the slightest, so yeah, I can completely understand how your daughter would be super scared of this. I remember seeing that movie for the first time and I was absolutely creeped out. And I don't get creeped out by movies, but that one messed with me a little bit. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure you get the right movie for your kids, because otherwise they might just be scarred for life, and that would not be good. Would you break up with your boyfriend because of their friends? I'm a 25-year-old female and I've been dating my boyfriend who's 33 years old for a few months now. We met at work, but we don't work for the same company. I'm a consultant that was based at his site for a few months. Due to lockdown and the intensity of the project, I ended up becoming friends with him as well as a few others from that site. They invited me to all of their work parties and even a going away weekend. Here's where the problems come in. I find his friends really disrespectful. One of his friends made fun of my hair and my boyfriend didn't even say anything. He claims that he didn't hear it and maybe he didn't. But his other friends, who are all in their 30s and 40s, have been alluding to our relationship for months. We do keep our relationship private because it hasn't been so long. His female friends ask if I'm just a friend with benefits, and the guys actually giggle when they see me. I get messages from his friends on social media saying that he's such a great guy and pushes us to be together, but it's not done in a caring way, although my boyfriend thinks it is. When we all hung out last year, they met some of my friends and his friends decided to invite my friends to a party, but not myself. He said it was just because they knew each other and he didn't say much on it. My friends actually never talked to them and they never got invited to these parties, and they only started talking to my friends more when they knew we were hanging out. When I used to turn up to parties, they would rarely talk to me and direct everything about me to my boyfriend. I think they're being very rude and they're acting like high school students. Now I have nothing to do with them, but I hear about them constantly talking about me and them alluding to some personal aspects of my relationship with my boyfriend that just makes me uncomfortable. I believe my boyfriend is being too passive with their behavior. He knows how uncomfortable they make me, and when he had a party Friday night, he texted me offering to leave leave when they showed up. However, I think I've lost care. If people he associates with are saying these things after 5 months and he still couldn't shut it down even after I've told him to do it multiple times, I'm honestly at a loss and I'm not sure if this is the right move or not. If your boyfriend's friends are making really inappropriate jokes or comments about you, especially if those comments are in front of your boyfriend who is hearing it all go down, then there is no reason your boyfriend can't pull them aside and be like, hey, you're making my girlfriend uncomfortable. You need to stop. It's as simple as that. And if they really are friends, then they will understand and back off. Otherwise, this is just straight up creepy and incredibly inappropriate. So from my perspective, I don't blame this lady for saying, hey, I think I'm done, because the boyfriend's being super passive and not being active in protecting his girlfriend. And in my eyes, that's more than enough reason for her to say, no thanks, I think I'm going to look elsewhere. But what do you think? What would you do if you were in this situation? Leave a comment down below. We would love to hear it. Today, I messed up by taking my brother grocery shopping with a blank check. My brother works at a restaurant and has been eating their food for 10 years now. It has made him a bit chunky, as he would put it. He's trying to lose weight, has lots of college debt, and is still depressed about our parents dying early. So I thought I'd help him out. On a personal note, I'm very frugal and make less than him, but he's all I've got left in this world. He's a great kid who has never said a bad word about anybody, so I took him grocery shopping for healthy food for once. He mostly got a bunch of frozen and canned stuff to store for later because this wouldn't be a regular thing, as well as lots of fruit, veggies, deli meat, but for the first time probably in a while, no junk food. The total comes out to $104. On the side, I'm thinking, geez, save some for me. On the outside, I'm chill, like, yeah, don't worry about it. I got you. I think you know where I'm going with this. My stomach is rumbling. My breakfast is a handful of peanuts. My lunch is almost my dinner, which was a sandwich from a restaurant. And today was supposed to be payday, but the manager is out and I don't have direct deposit. So I went hungry so that my brother could eat healthier, even though my paycheck is delayed. Honestly, you sound like a really good sibling, and I think you've earned the right to share whatever you just bought. It shows a lot of character that you would go hungry so that your brother could go and get some healthy food for once, which is a big thing. You want to be able to eat healthy and feel good about yourself, which is totally understandable. It sucks that you don't have direct deposit set up, which in my opinion, buddy, you need to set up direct deposit like yesterday. Direct deposit is like your best friend. That way you don't have to go to a bank or have to get anything filled out. You don't have to wait in a line to get your money. It's already in your account before you even get home. But other than that, this is a really sweet story, and I'm really happy that you have such a good bond with your family members where you are willing to go hungry so they can get some good food. An entitled Karen goes nuts as she gets offended by my shirt that makes fun of Karens. She finds this shirt offensive and eventually she gets violent, which causes the police to get involved. So I recently went on vacation. While on vacation, I stopped at a couple of those wacky tourist shops. You know, the ones filled with crazy shot glasses and t-shirts. While in one of them, the cashier was wearing a shirt that said, "Not today, Karen." I told her I thought the shirt was really funny, and then she tells me that they sell the shirt in the store, and of course, I rushed to buy one. Flash forward a couple of days, and I'm back home from vacation. I decided to go out for dinner instead of cooking, so I tossed on some clothes and headed to my favorite sushi place. I hadn't realized until I got there that I tossed on my new "Not Today, Karen" t-shirt. Honestly, I didn't think anything wrong would happen, cause come on, it's a t-shirt. But boy was I wrong. I go in, eat my fill of yummy sushi, and leave. As I'm heading to my car, I hear someone dramatically gasp in shock and then say loudly, "How dare you?" I turn to see what's going on, only to be met with a Karen marching right up to me, dragging her 4-year-old looking daughter right along with her. She was the typical Karen from her haircut to her overly priced, ill-fitting clothes. This bleach blonde menace gets right up in my face and starts shouting at me, "How dare you wear such an offensive shirt? That's a terrible term to say." She then went on to say that the word Karen is somehow equivalent to using a racial slur. Her daughter started wailing because her mother was screaming and dragging her along in my direction. As soon as she noticed her daughter crying, she started screaming about how I scared her with my offensive shirt. She just kept on going on and on, getting louder with every word. "You should be ashamed of yourself." Then she jammed her finger at me and started shouting about how people like me should be arrested for a hate crime. I just rolled my eyes and turned to leave. I was so full of sushi, and honestly, I couldn't care less what she was saying. I barely took a step forward when I was shoved from behind and nearly fell over. "Don't you walk away from me." I readjusted myself, walked up in her face, and calmly said, "Touch me again and see what happens." She backed up
up and started shouting about how dare I threaten her and her daughter. I said she's the one who shoved me, and if she tried that again, she would regret it. She starts screaming about how I assaulted her and her daughter, saying, "Someone call the police." Apparently, this Karen didn't know that the sushi shop I was just in is a local favorite for the police. There was 12 officers in there eating, and all 12 of them witnessed the whole thing. I'm also a bit buddy-buddy with the police that frequent the sushi place because one of my close family friends is an officer, and he always talked about me like I was his kid. And whenever I go to this sushi place, whenever I'm there, I pay for their meals as a thank you for their service. 6 of the 12 in there know me by name and came out. As soon as Karen saw them, she ran up to them, again dragging her poor child with her, and said I had hurt her and had called her a terrible name. The one cop, I'll call her Bethany, which is not her real name, walks over to me and asks me what started it. Bethany and I go off to the side and I explain what happened. Her training officer was my family friend, and the two were as close of friends as he was with my family. I told her what happened and had to explain the whole Karen joke with her. She laughed, told me I could go and that she would handle this. I thanked her and turned to leave. As soon as this Karen noticed that I was leaving, she started screaming louder, "How dare you let her get away with this?" I left without any more fuss. I'm not sure what happened to the Karen, but I'm sure that the next time I see Bethany, she will be more than happy to let me know. It's crazy how entitled some people can actually act. Like it's just a shirt. It's not like it was anything bad. And no, the word Karen is not an offensive word. To compare the word Karen to a word that has actual negative connotation in today's society, and I think you all know which word I'm talking about, is really, really ridiculous because it's not even close. Thankfully, this Karen got exactly what was coming to her, and the police were able to step in and put her in her place. My friend has guys falling over her constantly, and I'm so jealous of it, I don't even know what to do. I've been friends with Kate since high school. That's not her real name. So overall, about 10 years. I know this all will make me sound like a bad friend, but I just don't know what to do. I have never had a serious relationship. It makes me frustrated and anxious that Kate, on the other hand, doesn't have to lift a finger to have a plethora of guys to choose from. Everything always seems to work out for her, whether that's school, jobs, making friends, but I can't relate to her about dating at all, and I feel really insecure when she talks about her love life. She had the absolute sweetest boyfriend in college, and she broke up with him because he wanted to get married and she didn't. A few months later, we went to another state for the 4th of July and met this group of older guys in their 40s, and one of them asked Kate to dinner. She went out on the date, and they ended up dating for 2.5 years, eventually leading to them getting engaged. He was really wealthy and treated her like a princess, constantly flying back and forth to see her, taking her on expensive holidays, and showering her with gifts and attention. I didn't like him, but she didn't listen. She was nuts about him. She finally broke up with him after finding out he lied about something really big, and she ended up selling all of the stuff he bought her and made like $10,000. After that, she started dating the son of a famous actor, but broke up with him because he was being too clingy. Then this guy in our friend group, who I was really into, turned me down and asked her out a few months later. She went out with him, not knowing about my crush on him, and said that he was really, really rude to her. She was single for a while, and I thought we were finally on the same wavelength. Then we took a girls' trip to Norway in the spring with 2 other friends. We hired a tour guide through a company to take us on a big hike. The guide was this gorgeous student at a local university, and of course, he took a liking to Kate. He was so freaking hot, and the entire time, Kate spent a lot of time with him. After the tour was over, he even took her on 2 really sweet dates and bought her a gift to take home with her when she left. On our last day in Norway, we went out to a club and met these German guys in the lineup. Me and the other 2 girls wanted to head home earlier than Kate, so she stayed out with them. She even exchanged numbers with one of them and kept in contact with them when she got home. And she literally just told us that she's going to Germany next month to hang out with him. He even sent her money for half of the plane ticket as well as a hotel. He actually seemed like a normal, nice guy, and now she's taking a subsidized trip to Germany. Our other friends are either married or single, and I don't feel the same jealousy over their relationship.
relationships. It's like her life is charmed and I just keep getting ghosted. She could line up a different date 5 nights a week and they would all call her back, but I just can't seem to get anything together. I don't know how to be friends with her because I feel like I can't be happy for her. What should I do? It is honestly very unhealthy to compare yourself to other people, and I can completely understand where you're coming from where you're saying, hey, I'm living in my friend's shadow. So honestly, having some kind of distance between you and Kate might go a really long way. Like, obviously being around her is making you feel like garbage. And yeah, you're probably right. This Kate lady probably is very beautiful, and that's why all these men are immediately going towards her. But just because she's incredibly beautiful does not mean that you're not beautiful as well. Allowing this other woman's success in relationships cloud your vision of yourself is not healthy. You have so much worth and so much to offer in a relationship. I'm sure of it. So don't beat up on yourself so much. I think honestly, if you start focusing on yourself and not so much on this Kate lady or anybody else, you'll be so much happier and you'll probably be able to find yourself in a better relationship and in a better situation than you've ever been in. And then eventually you won't have to be jealous of this lady. And you might just find yourself in a relationship with somebody who's going to make all of this jealousy and frustration in your life simply go away. My family hates my girlfriend, and honestly, I'm not sure what to do about it. I'm a 21-year-old male and I live with my grandparents because my dad passed away in 2019 and my mom left us when I was 13 years old. She ran away with my dad's best friend. Ever since everything went down, my grandparents have been taking care of me. I have a girlfriend who's 19 years old, and my grandparents don't think she's good for me because of the few times they saw her. The first time she was sick, and she didn't come out of my room much, but she was sick and uncomfortable. Another time we were in my room just watching movies. Ever since we started dating, they didn't like her. She was always polite. She brought wine for them and a home-baked cake for my birthday. She's shy around new people, especially the ones that never liked her from the beginning. After that, my grandparents didn't want to see her anymore and she wasn't welcome at the home. They started calling her lazy, a gold digger, claiming that she's not going to be anything in life, and a lot of other bad things. They even started insulting her family. Every time I go to her, they say I'm making the biggest mistake ever. They also say that I have to ask if I want to go somewhere, even with friends. I always have to fight them just to see her, and they always just scream at me and it's always a problem. My brother also doesn't like her because he thinks she is using me. I love my girlfriend and I love her family. Her family has always welcomed me, and her mom said that she now has another son. My girlfriend wants me to move in with her and her family because she thinks it will be better for my mental health and that we will be happier. We had some ups and downs mainly because of my family, but I want a future with her. What should I do? This is honestly a terrible situation that your grandparents are so biased against your girlfriend, seemingly over nothing. From what you've described, it sounds like your girlfriend is a really nice woman, and I don't understand the perspective of your brother stating that she's just using you. There's nothing here that would insinuate that she's using you in any way. Plus, it looks like her family absolutely adores you. It seems like you have a good option to move out and go live with them if you really wanted to. And personally, if I was in your shoes, I would probably go do that. Your girlfriend's family really likes you, and it sounds like your grandparents are being really toxic. And there's nothing worse than being with someone that you love, only to then find resistance from people who you would expect would try and embrace her, or at the very least just try and get to know her. From the sounds of it, your grandparents have not taken the time to even get to know her in the slightest. They made a quick judgment call and they were just completely wrong. So yeah, if you have your life together as well as a job that can support yourself and transportation and all the other things that you might need, go ahead and move in with her family. I think they're right, and I think your girlfriend has it right too. You really will be happier and your mental health will be better too. So go for it. My fiance wants a prenup agreement before we get married. My fiance and I live together. I'm a 36-year-old female and he's a 45-year-old male. We're planning to get married. It's a second marriage for both of us. He has quite a bit of assets and I do not. And he wants a prenup, which in my opinion is fair enough. Right now, I do not have any income. I'm about to open a small business using my entire life savings on it, which isn't much either. He has a hefty income stream, being self-employed, and I help him with it, and a small portion of the income goes directly into a joint account for household expenses. It's been 9 months since he's hired his attorney to draft the prenup. In that 9 months, we've had about half a dozen discussions and arguments about it. Then he goes back and talks to his lawyer. Then a month or so later, I'll ask about it and we do it all again. I have never seen whatever draft they've put together. Today, I call him as he's out of town on business and ask where we are on the prenup. I say that since it's been so long and that I haven't even seen it, I think it's time I hire a lawyer to review what we've already agreed on. Honestly, I think I'm being too nice in the terms so far, but whatever. My lawyer will help me with that. I have made it clear that should either of us pass away, the other would receive half of the entire estate. He thinks it's unfair to his adult daughters from his previous marriage and says he doesn't need my half anyway if I pass away first. Anyways, he says that he wants us to agree on the terms first before I hire a lawyer because they're expensive. Well, it's been forever and we're still light years away from the finish line, and it especially seems this way with him driving the train on this. But then he follows it up with a "but it's up to you" kind of thing, in a way like he's trying to guilt trip me into changing my mind, as if I should just sign the prenup without having a lawyer present. I tell him that it's been 9 months, I've never seen it, and it's my right to hire an attorney. I even point out that my not hiring an attorney could be grounds for a judge throwing it out if we do get divorced, especially since I'd be getting a teeny tiny fraction of his total assets. Then he asks me who's paying for the lawyer and tells me it's not coming out of the joint account. So yeah, I felt like he was basically telling me I'm too poor to fight the terms of the prenup and to just shut up and sign it. He's the one that wants the stupid thing in the first place. Why should I have to beg him for money to make sure my rights are being upheld? This whole situation is really frustrating and I'm honestly not sure what to do. I think you definitely should get a lawyer. I can't really comment on what you should or shouldn't do because I don't really know the logistics of it, but yeah, you need to find a lawyer. And it seems like this guy's just being really sketchy about this. Like he's trying to push you to sign this prenup without allowing you some time to have counsel over it. Like to me, that would be a big red flag personally. If he really cared about you, he would want you to understand completely and entirely what's on it. And it seems like he's being so combative about it. Like that's just super sketchy to me personally. If this was a mutually good agreement between the both of you, then both parties would be actively involved in helping both of you understand this. Also, why on earth is this guy not footing the bill for the attorney on your end? Like, don't you want to get married and be together? I mean, sure, if you want to have a prenup, but this guy is treating it like it's not a partnership of some kind. You are still getting married after all. So I don't know. This whole situation seems super sketchy in my opinion, and if you really want to get married to this guy, I absolutely think you need to get a lawyer. Today, I messed up by going on a nighttime hike with my supposed friends, only to get left behind in the dark. For context, this happened back in March of this year, but I'm still feeling the effects. I'm an 18-year-old female, and a youth group that I'm a part of was doing a nighttime hike, and I decided to go with 2 of my friends, who've been some of my best friends for about 7 years. I forgot my inhaler for this hike, which I didn't think would be a big deal, since my asthma was mild, and I haven't had an attack since I was in kindergarten. Well, this hike was surprisingly steep, and for quite a while it was all incline, with no flat parts to rest at. I wasn't very active during much of quarantine, so I'm not as fit as I used to be, and because of my lack of fitness and how strenuous the hike was, I found that I was struggling to breathe, even struggling more than I ever have before. I asked my friends repeatedly if we could take a break because I was struggling to breathe, and I even once said that I forgot my inhaler, but instead they kept yelling at me, "Oh, you got this, keep going!" And they refused to stop, and pretty soon I was eating their dust. We had been told before the hike started to stick with our buddies, since it was very dark out and there are coyotes around, but they left me alone, and I felt like I had to keep going without stopping because I didn't want to get left behind. I could tell that I was the last one in the group by far, but I kept pushing even though every step hurt and my breaths were getting shorter and shorter. Then suddenly I couldn't breathe. I was having an asthma attack for the first time in 13 years, give or take, while all alone on a very dark mountain with no inhaler. I started to panic, but I remembered that I had read online that you needed to sit down, sit up straight, and remain as calm as possible while taking big, slow breaths. This was all just natural remedies in case you didn't have your inhaler. So I sat up straight and tried to remain calm while taking slow, deliberate breaths. I have no idea how much time passed, but it felt like 10 minutes maybe, and eventually I was able to breathe again, though my airways still felt relatively tight. I began to walk again, slower this time, taking breaks and making sure I was taking deep, slow breaths. I had my flashlight on while I was walking, and a group of 4 adults had seen it and waited at a point ahead of me so I could catch up. When I got to them, they asked what was wrong, and I just started crying while trying to catch my breath. And I explained that I had an asthma attack, but I don't have my inhaler. I hadn't met any of them before,
before, but they were very nice and said they would walk slow with me, telling me to take as many breaks as needed. They made polite conversation with me, but I felt incredibly embarrassed and angry the entire time. When we got to a point on the mountain with cell service, I got a text from one of my friends saying, are you good? I said I had an asthma attack. Then they asked if I was with someone and said that they felt so bad for leaving me behind. I didn't respond because I was pissed off. After a while, we caught up with the group at the end of the hike, and the man who was in charge of the activity was very worried about me and seemed a bit angry at my friends for leaving me behind and gave them strict instructions not to leave me behind on the way back down. When I first saw them, they laughed awkwardly and asked if I was okay, and I said yes, but nothing else to them. I wasn't having it. Instead of apologizing or acting worried at all, they just laughed at my predicament. What lovely friends. On the way back down, they made awkward conversation, but I wasn't really giving them much. And funnily enough, one of my friends started to walk way ahead a few times. And each time, my other friend would laugh and tell her that she's leaving someone behind, which honestly just felt so terrible. The next day, they left a half-hearted apology note as well as a plate of brownies at my door. But I didn't respond because I was too angry and didn't want to say something I might regret. I acted normal around them and the rest of my friend group at school, but ever since that happened, they just have not hung out with me at all. They haven't invited me to anything once since this happened. The entire friend group just iced me out. They were still nice and normal at school on the rare occasion that we were all around each other, and they like my Instagram posts, but they just don't text me or invite me to anything anymore. Now it's awkward with them, and it's like we aren't even friends anymore. We graduated a month ago and still nothing, so it's not like they are busy with school. I have other friends I hang out with who are great, and I found that I am much happier with them instead of my other group. They can actually address conflict instead of ghosting people as soon as any conflict arises. I am certain that none of them would leave their friend behind on a mountain in the middle of the night, but it still makes me sad losing a friend group of 7 years because I had an asthma attack. So the moral of this story is don't forget your inhaler on hiking trips. Honestly, I think the moral of this story is to find better friends. Any rational friend who actually cares about their friend's well-being would not have left you on that mountain. They were not your friends. They were probably acquaintances at best. This is not like leaving your friend behind at the mall or at the store or anywhere else or like at school. This is literally a mountain with nobody around to help you out. This poor original poster was by themselves having an asthma attack, and as someone who does have asthma, let me tell you, it is a nightmare to deal with. Especially if you don't have your inhaler with you. That can be a horrifying experience. But the technique that they did to try and get breaths inside of their body and to try and calm down is exactly what I would have done if I was in that situation. I honestly think it takes moments like this for you to really see who your actual friends are. And when the dust settled, guess what? None of them were there for her. They all went ahead up the mountain and left her behind. And if that's not a metaphor for how they actually feel about her, I don't know what is. So honestly, goodbye and good riddance to that former friend group. Because it sounds like this original poster found a better friend group that won't leave her alone on a mountain by herself in the dark. My boyfriend's entitled mother disowns her son all because he wouldn't feed her gambling addiction, only to then turn around less than a week later and demand money from my boyfriend. Here's what happened. My partner's mom lives in a different city than we do and is pretty reliant on her kids. My partner has 3 sisters, and the other sisters don't want much to do with her. She does this to keep herself afloat financially. It's important to note that she has a serious gambling addiction. Because of this, she tends to blow through the money my partner and his sisters send her in a matter of days before immediately asking for more. She also loses her phone all the time. She simply doesn't understand the concept of being cautious and frugal with money and valuables. The event that really set off an alarm, however, was her winning $27,000 at a casino, all before the money was mysteriously gone in less than 2 weeks. He had also sent her over $1,000 in wire transfers over the last year, which she also wasted. From this point, my partner decided to start holding her more accountable for her irresponsibility and sent her a Chime card, which he and only he can put money on it as well as withdraw money from it. He even warned her up front that if he saw that she took money out of the card at an ATM, that he would know she's wasting it on gambling and that he would pull the plug on it. She did not like this at all. After he he made this clear to her, she called him a few hours later and left the following voicemail.
Keep the money that you were going to send me because you and your sisters are no longer a part of my life. I'm disowning you from this day on. Stay out of my life forever.
Obviously, she was angry that he wouldn't be feeding her gambling addiction anymore. It was harsh, but it was fine. Apparently, this isn't the first time she's done something like this. This happened last week. Cut to this morning, and my partner sees he has 2 missed calls from his mom, followed by a text message asking,
"Where did you send my money to?"
We were both very confused when we saw this. My partner called her back and asked, "Why do you expect me to send you money when you said that I'm disowned from you?" Her response was honestly to say that he would always be disowned from her. After my partner heard that, he hung up on her. She called back a couple more times about the money, which my partner wasn't going to give her. She even told him to be a man and pay her. He even called her back and played the voicemail she left into the phone, after which his mom again hung up. Just imagine having the absolute audacity to disown your son, only to then do a complete 180 and ask for money from that son. There was no apology about what she said, just a request for more money that she doesn't work for, as well as doubling down on what she said, yet still expecting him to feed her addiction. Let's just say my partner's mom is never going to be Mother of the Year anytime soon. That's really disgusting that this mom would disown their son over the fact that they're not going to feed their gambling addiction. It's really sad because this kind of behavior is just unacceptable. It sounds like this original poster's partner is well on their way to doing this, but they need to cut off this mom from any financial support permanently. If they're going to be acting like this and saying that they're disowning their son for their son not giving them exactly what they want, then it's time for them to figure this out themselves. It's probably going to take this lady to be homeless and without any support for her to realize that, hey, I need to start saving my money. But even then, that might not be enough. Gambling addictions are really scary because all of your money and assets can go straight into the void and be completely taken away from you, also you can get your fix. Hopefully the mom in this situation can get some help because otherwise this lady's not going to have anyone to even talk to her pretty soon, especially if she disowns people for not giving her what she wants. Several people in my social group are interested in the same guy, and I'm worried that there's going to be a fallout in our social group if this continues. What should I do? I am a long-standing member of an LGBTQ+ social group focusing on a slightly niche nerdy hobby. There are around 12 core members. Our ages range from 20 to mid-30s, and most of us are men. Mark, that's not his real name, joined the group approximately 2 years ago. He's one of the youngest in the group, and I'm somewhere in the middle. He was already in a long-term relationship when I first met him, and has only recently become single. I like Mark a lot. He is incredibly good looking, but he is also smart, funny, and an absolute sweetheart. He is very popular in the group, and the dynamic has noticeably improved since he started coming. I've had a huge crush on him since day one, as have several other guys in the group. I know it sounds creepy, but we've joked about it sometimes, about how people would be queuing up if he ever became single. But obviously, we never did this in front of him. The general consensus is that Mark is the type of guy who will go straight from long-term relationship to long-term relationship. He's a bit of a romantic, and he's not the kind of guy who would be single for long. When Mark told us he and his boyfriend broke up, obviously we were all very supportive. We haven't seen him regularly since it happened because he's not felt up for it. He comes up in conversation regularly though. As I said, he's a popular guy. Last time we met up as a group, he wasn't there. He did, however, come up in conversation, and someone said something about him being single for the first time in years. Without thinking about it much, I jokingly said, "Dibs," because it's not a secret that several of us are interested in him. Obviously, I know calling dibs isn't a real thing. He's not my property, and I'm not entitled to anything. It was just a stupid joke. Obviously, I wouldn't tell Mark how I feel about him until he's feeling better because I don't want to pressure him. But to be honest, I'm kind of worried that one of the other guys will swoop in before I get the chance. So maybe this was just my awkward way of bringing that up. It didn't go well at all though, including with the other guys who I know for a fact are also waiting for their chance. I do realize it was a dumb thing to say, but the more I think about it, the more worried I am about us actually competing for him, both for our sakes as well as for his. It has the potential to be extremely uncomfortable. With the exception of Mark himself, none of us have especially good social skills. In contrast, he isn't remotely socially awkward, but he is young and doesn't like offending anyone, so if it does
does get messy, it could be rough on him. I fully realize he may not be interested in any of us. Frankly, he is out of all of our leagues. I have a few reasons to think I might have a chance, but I could just be kidding myself. I'm mainly just concerned that if we all decide we want to make a move, how on earth is that gonna go? Do we make an agreement amongst ourselves? That just sounds like some kind of sitcom stuff. And if Mark knew we were talking about him like that, I'm positive it would freak him out. I really like my hobby group, and I like Mark being a part of it. Maybe the sensible thing would be to put my feelings for him on ice. I'm crazy about him though, and I really don't want to miss my chance. What should I do? I'm not gonna lie, the amount of people circling around this guy like they're a bunch of vultures is really disturbing. And to be honest, from my perspective, it's a little creepy. Like, you know he's a sweet guy and he doesn't want to offend people, and it seems like all of you are looking at him like he's a piece of meat. You can totally have a crush on him, like, don't get me wrong, but it seems like it's being handled really poorly. So I think you might have the right idea. Maybe put it on ice and see if he even comes back to the hobby group. Because if he's laying low, he's probably doing it for a reason. And who's to say he doesn't already know how people feel about him at this hobby group in general? Like, rumors can spread. Who's to say he doesn't know what all of you have been saying about him? Maybe that's weirded him out. I don't know what the truth is, but honestly, I think maybe taking a step back and giving someone some space could really go a long way in this situation. My coworker refuses to accept that I cannot attend her party, and now I don't know what to do. My coworker has organized a big birthday party for herself and made it a wedding theme party, meaning that we are supposed to wear clothes that we would wear to a wedding as a wedding guests. This is all because, according to her, as she has never been married and her father is now terminally ill, she wants to have a father-daughter dance. I already RSVP'd that I would go weeks ago. However, last weekend I began getting excruciating pain in my wrist. For some background on this, I've had cancer twice since I was 26. One tumor in my spine that was surgically removed after radiotherapy at 27 years old, and then a type of lymphoma in the glands of my throat that I had surgically removed January of 2021. Any bone pain now terrifies me, and rightfully so, to be honest. I went to the doctor finally on Thursday night when I couldn't move my hand, and they confirmed with an x-ray that I have a growth on my wrist bone that could be bone cancer, but I won't know entirely until they test it. My coworker does not know about my history of cancer. However, as I kept everything very quiet when I had the time off and basically told my managers that if anyone ended up knowing that I had not personally told, that I would be taking them to a tribunal regarding confidentiality, as I am a very private person. I was lucky and privileged, to be honest, because none of my treatments led me to losing any of my hair on my head except my eyebrows and eyelashes, which I blamed on my thyroid. I lost a couple of rows of hair on the back of my head weirdly, but that was covered up by the rest of my hair, and the rest of my hair just shed more than usual. So thankfully, nothing major that would be super noticeable. I've been signed off of work with a sick note, which carries me through to after a biopsy is taken. I'm in a great deal of pain, and it's nerve pain, so I need special neuro painkillers to even touch it. I messaged her and said I'm so sorry to let you down last minute, but I can't come due to carpal tunnel. And I know that's a lie, but my business is my business. I also explained truthfully that I'm on loads of painkillers, and I can't go. I expected that to be the last of it, to be honest. Instead, she has messaged me back and forth 3 times insisting that I must go. The first message said, "No, don't do that. Can't you come for just a bit and get a few drinks in you so the pain feels less bad?" I replied that I also didn't want work to find out I handed in a sick note and then went to a party. Again, I assumed the interaction would be done and over with from there. She messaged me back saying, "I've been off sick with a broken bone before and went to a work event. Just don't appear in any photos. No one will tell on you." This filled me with so much social anxiety, to be honest, because I'm walking a fine line all the time at work between my professional assertiveness and maintaining friendly relations with my colleagues, as it is, and a fear dysfunction in my working relationships. I replied that I was taking my sick note in tomorrow and would let her know what my pain was like tomorrow, but I doubt that I would be able to come. I also said that I would reimburse her for the money she spent on my meal. She has messaged a 3rd time saying, "It's not about money. You were my top person on my list that I wanted there from work, and I don't want to have to look at your empty seat." I haven't opened or replied to the message yet because I've honestly never encountered such an unwillingness to accept what I'm saying in a context like this before. Does anyone have any advice as how to even navigate this in the first place? Pain, fear, and acute social anxiety are impairing my ability to make a good decision, I think. like, what should I do? I think the way your friend is acting is super inconsiderate. They are 100% thinking about themselves and not about you. I think your honest first step would be to stop trying to defend yourself or to try and justify your actions. You said you aren't coming. That's that. If she feels upset about that, well then let her be upset. People cancel things all the time. You are not the first person on planet Earth to decide, hey, I've got to back out of this thing. It is what it is. It's not like you did this on purpose. You're having a medical issue that you're clearly concerned about. Also, for context, her coworker is 40 years old. You would think someone that old would have a little bit more consideration towards somebody else having a medical emergency. And yeah, I would classify this as a medical emergency. You're trying to figure out if you have cancer or not. That would be really scary. So I would personally message her back one more time and say, no, I can't do it. I've got some medical things going on and I would feel more comfortable staying home. And honestly, that's that. If she messages anymore, you don't even have to respond, in my opinion. Because if someone's going to be that super inconsiderate, then I truly think it's not worth even showing up. Today, I realized that I have no friends. Today was my birthday, and I don't really like to celebrate or do anything special, nor do I expect people to do something big for me. But I think I deserved a simple wish from some of my closest friends, who just so happen to be the same friends that I stay up every year all night to wish them a happy birthday once their birthday rolls around. But in complete contrast, nobody remembered. I am the most disappointed in my best friend, who I have known for 10 years. And it's not even about the birthday wishes that I didn't get this year, but rather it's about what's been happening for months now. I am slowly losing friends, and nobody is interested in staying my friend anymore because I am a boring person who took a very hard career and is always busy with college and stuff. And I am never in for stuff that normal teens or young adults do. But despite all that, I always find time for a few close friends. But now I think it isn't worth it. Most of all, I am heartbroken about my best friend. I reminded her that it's my birthday, and she messaged me an hour later to apologize for not wishing me happy birthday. And honestly, it did not sound sincere. I told her it's okay and that I'm not mad at all. And after that, we didn't really talk. She had been ignoring me and avoiding me for several weeks now, and I think that was it. She has now completely checked out, it seems. I do not know if I should try one more time. I'm not sure if I should just throw away years of friendship without more effort on my part. Should I contact her again? What should I do? I've been in this situation and I know exactly what you're going through, because losing friends in your 20s is something that just kind of happens. People that you spent so much time with, so much time getting to know and spending time around, eventually people do drift apart. Unfortunately, you can't hang on to everybody, and that's just the truth. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I can tell you, being in the throes of that and seeing your friends drift apart and people who used to be your best friends slowly become your acquaintances is really nasty, and it really sucks. I think you can make efforts to try and reach out and rekindle that friendship, but honestly, if the other person is not putting in the effort that you're putting in, then in my opinion, just from personal experience, there's nothing wrong with letting go and letting them become an acquaintance. If they don't want to be that good best friend to you, then personally, I would just let them go in the direction they clearly want to go. I'm a firm believer that when someone tells you who they are, or if they show you who they are, you should believe them. And in this case, it seems like your best friend is slowly drifting apart. Now, do I think you should drop them completely? No, absolutely not. I think you should go back and try and get things back together. It honestly doesn't seem like a lost cause. It seems like maybe your friend just forgot. It seems like an honest mistake. So in my opinion, I think you should go back and give it a try and see if you can get your friendship back together with this lady. Because who knows, she probably thinks you're still her best friend, and maybe some honest communication will help you both see that again. My husband and I are expecting our third baby, but his family is mad at us because they think I'm ruining his life. My husband and I have two girls. One girl is 16 months old and the other is 3 months old, and we are expecting another one. I don't think any of it was planned, it just sort of happened. We stopped using protection, knowing what could happen, and well, here we are. It was our decision, and fortunately, we can afford to have another baby. So when we told his family, we announced it as happy news. We didn't ask for advice on what to do, but anyways, they started telling us exactly what to do. His mother was furious with me because according to her, I am the one who has this obsession with having so many children, which is just simply not true. I always dreamed of having a baby, and for years, I thought I would not be able to have children. So when I finally got pregnant, I didn't mind having another one. But it was never just my decision. My husband always supported me because he also wants children. But it was never an unhealthy obsession because having children was never my only goal. It was just a dream. But according to her, I'm crazy and apparently I'm ruining her son's life. My husband told her to stop saying those things or else they would never hear from him again. But they kept saying those things as well as other terrible things about me. And when they started saying these things over and over again, my husband has taken the girls and refuses to contact them. It has been 4 days and we have not spoken to any of them, even when they've tried to contact us. They apologized to me and said that the news took them by surprise and that they shouldn't have reacted like the way they did. But still, my husband doesn't want anything to do with them. I talked to him and he says he doesn't want to talk to them for a while. I told him that in a few days it's his birthday and that his family had a party planned for him. He said he doesn't care and he wants to spend his birthday only with me and the girls. And I respect his decision. And I know that what they said was wrong, but they already apologized and I think they were genuine. I don't want that misunderstanding to end up in a fight that ruins their relationship forever. What should I do? It sounds like your extended family is really toxic towards you as well as your husband, which is really unfortunate because you would expect that having another child in the family would be a joyous occasion, but instead they turn on you and try and pretend like this is your fault. That's just disturbing. I completely understand where this guy is coming from. I would be super upset with my family if they said that about my wife as well, especially if I was in his shoes. So I kind of see where he's coming from. I think maybe giving this some time and allowing him to cool down might hopefully allow him to have a clear perspective where he isn't so emotionally engaged. And I honestly don't think the birthday party is going to happen, but I think eventually he can come to talk to his family again, and hopefully they can actually mean it when they say they're sorry and never talk to you or your husband like that ever again. Should I be forced to pay my mom's mortgage? So a bit of background. My mom and dad have been divorced for some time now, which leaves my mom as a single parent to me. Since I started working, I have had to pay board and rent to my mom, which of course I have no issues with. However, everyone I've spoken to thinks I pay way too much. Since I got my first full-time job, I've had to pay $400 a month to my mom to live at home. This was not discussed prior, and I did not get a say on this. She seemed to just pick this number out of thin air. I have questioned where this money goes, as surely that means the house, including bills, costs more than $800 a month, as I assume I should be paying half. Every time I try to talk to her about it, she gets super defensive, she starts shouting, and it ends with us both getting angry and upset. During these discussions/arguments, she keeps mentioning I wouldn't have to pay as much if she had 2 wages coming into the household. Surely that's not my problem or fault, right? It's not my fault that dad doesn't live with us. She also has lied to me by giving me different amounts regarding the amount outstanding on the mortgage, as well as what I owe from bills. Anyways, it goes on and it gets worse. My mom has had a savings account in my name, which she is a trustee of since I was born. She had the money from the government for having a child put into there. By the way, I live in the United Kingdom. There is approximately $9,000 in the account, which I appreciate and is a lot of money. I was told growing up I would receive this when I turned 18. However, this never happened. I can also add here the fact that my mom has stated that this is her money and that she put it into a trustee savings account with my name as the beneficiary to avoid my dad taking half should they split up, which guess what? They eventually did. My mom had stated numerous times that she would like to get this withdrawn as she wants this money transferred to her bank account to pay off her mortgage, which she states has a shortfall of about $9,000. Again, when she's mentioned the outstanding balance on the mortgage, the number changes drastically, so I'm not sure if I believe her. I contacted the bank to see where I stand, and they stated that legally the money is mine as it has been saved and earned interest in my name. They said it would have to be put into a bank account in my name to be released, which is what I did. So I had the money put into my bank account to be put into a savings account each month to earn interest on it. However, my mom isn't happy about this and said she felt blindsided and that she wanted the money to be transferred into her bank account for the mortgage. She says that she wants the money when the savings account is finished, but I can keep any interest earned. The savings account is only a 1-year account and is due to end in the coming months. So I'm just looking for some help on what to do in this situation, as she has again mentioned the money in the savings account coming to an end. I should also mention that my mom is most definitely not struggling financially. She had me set up a direct debit into her savings account from her bank, and I couldn't help but see the balance in her account. She could buy the house again at the original price and still have money left over. I'm totally lost right now. Do I give her the money? Do I give her half? Do I tell her it's legally mine and that I don't have to give her any of it? Money is such a difficult thing to talk about even at the best of times, and it can sometimes bring out the worst in people. What should I do? Here's my honest opinion, and this does not answer your question. question at all. I would take the money and move out. Clearly, your mom's just trying to get that money to use it for herself. Sure, she's got a mortgage to pay off, but guess what? That money is in your name. To be honest, it sounds like your mom is super greedy and super entitled. You don't have to give her anything personally. I would honestly follow the advice of the bank and say, hey, it's yours. And the worst part about it is, she already has money she can use to pay for her mortgage. It literally sounds like she just wants this out of greed, which is just super unfair to you. So if I was in your shoes, I would not give this money to her. That's just my opinion though. But what about you? What would you do if you were in this situation? Leave a comment down below. We would love to see it. My insane mother-in-law is convinced that I am going to divorce my wife and is trying to convince my wife of the same, and I've simply had enough. My wife and I have been together for 8 years and have been trying to have our first child for about 6 months now. We were keeping everything under wraps, but my wife recently had to take leave from her job at the advice of a doctor. This was all related to trying to get pregnant as well as some existing medical conditions. We decided it was time to let our parents know, as keeping my wife's leave under wraps was going to be impossible. My mother-in-law responded to the news by saying that she needed time to process the information. I walked into another room and my mother-in-law called my wife back and made sure I couldn't hear the conversation and proceeded to tell my wife that she has concerns and that she didn't think that we should have a child together. My mother-in-law's concerns were a complete blindside to both my wife as well as myself. My wife graduated approximately 2 years ago, and my father-in-law told me ahead of her graduation party, without my mother-in-law's knowledge, mind you, that my father-in-law as well as my mother-in-law were buying us a set of cornhole boards. During the graduation party, I said something about the cornhole boards to my mother, and my mother-in-law realized that I knew about the boards before the party. Instead of asking me how I knew, she went to her husband and asked if he knew how I found out. My father-in-law lied. He denied telling me, and they came up with the insane theory that I must have snooped through their email account when I fixed their computer. This lie has snowballed out of control to the point that my mother-in-law now believes that I am installing tracking devices on my wife's person and vehicle. She also claims that I'm wiretapping her phone and that I am tracing her at her job daily. She told my wife that I am going to wait until the child is born, divorce my wife, take the child, and use this medically necessary leave to claim my wife is not capable of being a parent. My wife went and talked to her mother in person that night. My mother-in-law would not even allow my father-in-law in the room and said that our opinions match, claiming that he did not need to be there for the conversation. She told my wife that for the last 2 years, I have shown red flags that needed to be addressed before we considered having a baby. When pressed about if my mother-in-law even believes we should remain married, she refused to answer the question. She went so far as to compare me to her abusive ex-husband, who also just happens to be my wife's biological father, with whom my wife has cut contact with for almost 12 years. My wife and I are furious and incredibly hurt that they have let things get to this point without talking to us. Is there any way to restore this relationship with my wife's parents? If so, what steps should be taken? My wife and her mother have always been close, and they never keep secrets from each other. But this was left festering for so long that I feel it has become insurmountable. My father-in-law has always been scared to anger my mother-in-law and would never come clean about telling me about the cornhole boards at this point, as my wife and I believe it would jeopardize their marriage. What should I do? In my opinion, these people sound crazy. Like the fact that she believes that this guy is actually tracking her at work, as well as somehow wiretapping their phones, is just completely ridiculous. And it doesn't help that the father-in-law is the person to blame for this entire situation. Like if the mother-in-law was just a pile of gasoline, the father-in-law was the match that lit it. Instead of just owning up to it and being like, yep, I told him about the cornhole boards. It's my fault. I shouldn't have done that. He instead let this transform into something that's just absolutely ridiculous. In my opinion, I would cut these people off very quickly from my life. And it sounds like the original poster in this situation is going to be thrown under the bus for the rest of eternity. If I was the original poster, I would sit down with my wife and say, hey, your parents are crazy. I still love you, but I don't want them in our lives. Because in my honest opinion, this will never get better, especially when accusations are being thrown around without any shred of evidence. So yeah, that's my take on this situation, and I really hope you're able to find some relief from these crazy in-laws. Because from the sounds of it, I think you're in it for the long haul, and I think they're gonna blame you for everything pretty much no matter what. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check out the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for cutting off my uncle from my life after he refused to help take care of my grandfather? So first, a little bit of backstory. I live in an Asian country where we had some pretty traditional values, like men are better than women, stuff like that. My family takes care of my grandfather, and we have for over 10 years without a break, because he had a stroke some years back and needs help walking, eating, and showering. My uncle and his wife didn't want to take care of him, so the responsibility fell on my mom, my dad, my brother, and me. A few months ago, my uncle offered to take care of my grandfather for 2 months because he wants his child to get to know my grandfather. We of course say yes and finally take a much needed vacation. 1 month in, and we get a message from our uncle, and it said that he dropped off my grandfather at our doorstep with his luggage and that we need to come back quickly to take care of him. We were shocked and angry because we were an hour away and couldn't get back fast enough. So we asked him to at least bring him inside our home and to use our spare key under the doormat. He did that begrudgingly, but kept on messaging us about how big of an inconvenience this was. Turns out my uncle got bored of taking care of my grandfather and decided that he didn't want to take care of him anymore and just dropped him off without notice. And while he was in our house, he stole one of our family heirlooms because he wanted payment for taking care of my grandfather. Keep in mind, our family heirloom is a painting of my great-grandfather, who was a famous painter, and his paintings usually go for a lot of money. And this particular painting was promised to my mom. After all this, we demanded him to bring back the painting, and he said he didn't want to because we were apparently not taking care of it properly and that he would just keep it safe for us. So we went no contact with him, we blocked him on all social medias, and we blocked his phone number. But my grandfather still talks to him daily, and my grandfather says that we were too harsh and that we shouldn't cut off family. Plus, all of our relatives are chiming in and saying that we're the jerks in this situation. So that begs the question, are we the jerks for cutting off my uncle after the way he acted and the things he did? I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think the fact that your uncle dropped off your grandfather at your doorstep all because he got bored of taking care of him is absolutely ridiculous. You don't just get rid of a family member because you're bored of them and you don't want to take care of them. They're not a pet. You can't do that. This is a commitment, and guess what? You're agreeing to take care of them. In fact, the uncle is the one that came to this family saying, hey, I want to take care of my father now. When you say, hey, I want to do this, guess what? You have to do it. The grandfather on this situation is really in need of assistance, and he really needs help. So it's completely insulting and irrational for you to then suddenly turn around and say, nah, I don't want to take care of him. That's not fair for anybody. And on top of all of that, and just how inconsiderate this uncle is, he robbed your family. He stole a family heirloom that did not belong to him, all under the guise that he's going to supposedly keep it safe. And I can guarantee you that that painting's going to be in worse condition under his care than it would have been in your own house. So no, in my opinion, you are not the jerk. I would completely ignore any of the relatives who have nothing to do with this situation because they are just birds chirping on the power line in this situation. They literally have nothing to do with it, so they can stay out of it. And in my opinion, I think you should continue to cut off your uncle because his actions are clearly toxic and he is only thinking about himself. I offered to buy him a drink on our second date, but got stuck with a whole bill instead. Is it okay for me to be upset? I've been talking to this guy every day for several weeks. Conversations have been great, our first date was really good, and we ended up going out again yesterday. Everything was going so well until the bill came along. I had asked if I could pick the next place that we would go to. We're both foodies. So we went to a place he'd never been to before. It was a little pricey, but he chose it out of a list that I sent him. The restaurants on that list varied from super cheap to kind of expensive. The day before, he had an exciting development at work, and I offered to buy us a round of drinks to celebrate. It's worth noting, I did not offer to pay for the whole menu when I said this. He orders one of the more expensive drinks on the menu, which is totally fine. I was planning on paying for it anyways. The bill comes and they set it near me. I needed to use the restroom, so I set my card down and said if they come back, to just give them my card for the drinks. I come back from the restroom and the bill and my card are still sitting there. The waiter comes up and asks if we're going to be using my card to pay. I look at him and he looks at me. No movement or offer to split the bill. It's awkward, so I just go ahead and pay for everything. We did grab drinks afterwards and he paid for what I got, but the whole experience left a bad taste in my mouth. He didn't make a move to kiss me at the end of the night, which was just strange also. I'm torn on how I should feel about this. My immediate reaction was to feel kind of mad and turned off, but part of me feels like because I picked the place, maybe I was supposed to pay for some reason? I'm not sure, but I would love to know someone else's perspective on this. So what do you think? Am I okay to be upset over this? I can see your perspective on this one, but he did pay for the first date, and you didn't really communicate clearly or speak up for yourself at all, so it kind of sounds like this one's on you. I think you probably should have made it a little bit more clear that you're just paying for the drinks, and that he
he's going to be picking up the rest of it, but it sounds like that part of the conversation was either completely missed or not at all communicated. So unfortunately, I think you're just going to have to eat that bill, and maybe next time speak up a little bit better about what you want. That way everybody can walk away happy. My brother is gaslighting his wife really badly, and I don't know if there's anything I can do about it. I know gaslighting is a term that gets thrown around a lot lately, so please correct me if I'm not using it right, but I think I am. To start off, I'm a 23-year-old female. My brother is 34 years old, and he's married to a girl who is 21 years old. They have 3 kids together, and he treats her like absolute garbage. And no matter what I say to her, she'll always just make an excuse for it. She'll say things like, oh, he's just tired from work, or whatever. And it reached a point where if I talk too badly about him, she'll get annoyed with me and stop talking to me for a while. Anyway, I recently heard that he cheated on her. The person who told me is a reliable source, so I'm sure he did cheat, but I don't have any solid proof. I still don't know if I should say something to her or not, since I don't have any proof. She's talked to me a few times about things that she's noticed that have been off, especially things that I've told her were red flags and that she should look into. One of the things was his long hours at work. She said she was talking to one of his coworkers' wives and mentioned how hard the longer hours have been. The wife had no idea what she was talking about. Her husband wasn't working any extra hours. I told her that that was weird and she should look into it. She ended up asking my brother, and he gave her some BS excuse about how just his department was working late. I pointed out to her that the woman she talked to is in the same department as her husband. She was just like, oh, I'm sure there are smaller inner departments we don't know about. Then she found text messages on his phone, like straight up cheating texts. She confronted him about it, and he said it was one of his coworkers texting his girlfriend from his phone. And yet still, she's not catching on. To top it all off, she found a ring in their SUV that he used when his truck was in the shop. He claimed it was mine, that it must have fallen off when I used the car to pick up their kids. She went to return it to me, and I told her that it was not mine. When she asked my brother again, he told her that he didn't mean me, but our other sister or one of her friends. But neither of those people that he mentioned picked up the kids ever, as none of them have their license. And the incidents go on and on. How can I snap her out of it without getting her mad? I really don't have much of a relationship with my brother, to be honest. I do, however, have a relationship with her because we were both in cheerleading together in high school. What should I do? It's a really sad situation because I don't know if there's anything you can do. It sounds like the writing could literally be on the wall or on the phone and she's still gonna deny it. Like she passes off all of this toxic behavior without ever confronting him about it, which is just really, really sad. Very obviously, her husband is absolutely using her, and he has manipulated her so much that she doesn't say anything about blatant red flags that are right in front of her face. And that is really, really sad. I can only imagine being in that type of situation where you're trying to desperately excuse everything your significant other is doing, all to avoid the inevitable reality that they are probably cheating on you, let alone treating you terribly, and for years at that. But unfortunately, I don't know if there's much this original poster can do other than just saying, hey, I'm here for you and I care about you. Because it sounds like this lady does not want to fess up to the fact that her husband is treating her poorly and cheating on her. And if a person doesn't want help with the situation or in any way wants to face this, then there's really not much you can do about it. My mom called me fat and expects me to apologize to her. My mom and I have always had a strained relationship due to her being absolutely crazy. She's an aggressive narcissist, she's a gaslighter, and she has always favored my younger, substance-addicted, money-thieving brother for God knows what reason. My mom and I did actually have a period of my childhood where she said she would brag to her friends about me. She would tell them that I would get good grades, and that I don't run off with the boys, and I don't get pregnant, I don't do any of these terrible things. I realized a couple of years ago that I don't really remember when she stopped saying those nice things about me. I mean, did she ever? Maybe she was lying then too. Well, little did I know that not only had she stopped saying nice things about me, if she ever did, but she has also been insulting me to our family for years. I didn't find this out until about 2 weeks ago. I got a phone call from my cousin who said she didn't want to keep quiet about something
something anymore, saying that she had to tell me that my mom was over at my aunt's house in front of the entire family mocking me. She said I'm too sensitive and that I'm self-conscious about my body and that it's probably because I'm fat and that she has to choose her words carefully around me because otherwise I might start a fight. Now, just days before this, I had gone to a bridesmaid dress fitting at my mom's place and the dress was massive on me. Yes, I'm very curvy, but the dress was even bigger. My mom, in half an hour, managed to insult my body, my skin, my hair, and more. I have chronic depression. She knows this, and I spent the next week in a manic depressive spiral, but she simply didn't care. So to get that phone call from my cousin was the last straw. I posted a poem on my socials, which I had no intention of posting before, about how my mom tore me down during one dress fitting. She contacted me soon after and was saying everything was my fault anyway and demanding that I explained why I would even post the poem in the first place. It has now been 2 weeks of no contact. I've been to 2 family events with her around and have actually been much calmer and happier without her hanging around, and I think she knows it. Yesterday, while at a carnival with the family, my mom was there again. I didn't say a word and I enjoyed myself with the other family thoroughly. My cousin told me she overheard my mom saying she's waiting for me to come to her, but I have no intention of doing that anymore. Later, my uncle sat down with me and said my mom feels this is so weird and he doesn't want me to have any regrets and that he can't imagine me not being at my mom's wedding, who I was going to be a bridesmaid for until things went south. He says this after witnessing my mom making fun of me and calling me fat. He was pretty much asking me to forgive and forget and to move on. I don't know about you, but I've experienced more happiness and growth in the 2 weeks I've cut my mom off than I think I would by forgiving and forgetting the stuff she's done to me for the 100th time. I don't think I will forgive and move on like I always have before. I think instead I'll just move on without her with a smile on my face. Good for this original poster for finally seeing that, hey, I don't need this crazy lady in my life, especially when her mom has been treating her like garbage for years. There's a cliche saying that I've heard somewhere before that says, sometimes the best revenge is a life well lived. And I really like that, and I think that applies in this situation. Your mom has put you down, humiliated you, and talked badly about you constantly. There is no reason for you to forgive her for anything. I think maybe eventually you can find yourself in a place where you can let go of the things that have happened, but to be expected to forgive her just so you can keep the peace and have it so her wedding goes off while you're there is not something I would do if I was in your shoes. I absolutely would make it a point, especially at her own wedding, to say, hey, your actions actually have consequences this time. And guess what? It's your own fault. So good for you for finding your voice and good for you for finding a way to get away from her. Because in my opinion, you're going to be so much better off without her constantly putting you down. My dad is planning on divorcing my mom, and my mom wants me to try and help salvage their marriage as a last resort. And I honestly don't know what to do. The beginning of this is a mess. For me at least. My mom and dad have been married for a long time. I don't know the exact length, but I'd say at least 20 years. On June 19th of this year, they were having a super loud fight. I stayed in my room trying to ignore it by playing a rhythm game, as one does. Then the fighting sort of stopped, but my sister and I were called to the dining room. My mom and dad were at the table, looking distressed. Lots of stuff was said, but the summary was that my dad was tired of fighting and didn't feel like he belonged in our family anymore. He didn't say anything about divorce, but he sure did imply that he wanted one. My sister, who was more aware of this conflict between my parents than I was at the time, snapped at both of them, saying that she was tired of their fights and that all she wanted was for her sister, which is me, as well as herself to be safe. She told them to go somewhere else if they were going to keep fighting like this, and thankfully they did. My older sister later comforted me because I was confused and upset, but for the rest of the day, we were in our respective rooms trying to cope. My parents came home at around 11 o'clock at night. The fighting died down, to me at least, but I noticed that my parents weren't talking anymore and my dad was sleeping on the couch instead of their shared room. I've noticed he's also listening to an audiobook called Should I Stay or Should I Go? Fast forward to today. I was in my room minding my own business as usual, and my mom came in very visibly upset. She told me that my dad was planning on divorcing her and selling our house and other property properties. She wanted to ask me if I could write him a letter telling him that he should stay and not divorce my mom. This is because I had to write a letter to my parents for my 8th grade graduation, and despite how lazy I was in writing that letter to them, it ended up making them cry. My mom told me that because I'm my father's daughter, he has a soft spot for me and will listen to me. So I told her that I would write the letter. This has single-handedly ruined my day. I already have to deal with regular 14-year-old things, like my current summer school classes, and having an annoying crush. And that's almost too much for me already. I've basically been tasked with mending my parents' relationship. I've told my friends about this, and they've offered me places to stay as well as their support. But like me, they're all 14 and don't know how to deal with this sort of heavy stuff either. I also can't go to my sister for help right now because she's on an international school trip, and I don't want to ruin her fun by dropping this news on her. It's the summer before her senior year, and I don't want her to be stressed during a time where she's supposed to be having a good time with her friends. And just so you know, my dad is very firm on his decision to divorce my mom. They've tried therapy, they've tried couples counseling, but he said he doesn't want to do that anymore and just wants the divorce. What should I do? I want to make it very clear to anybody listening. If you place it on your kids to try and save your marriage, you are a terrible human being and a terrible parent. That is not the kind of thing you put on your kids' shoulders. I'm sorry, that is just absolutely terrible. I feel so bad for this original poster to be put in a position like that where they are now in a roundabout way responsible for the success or failure of this marriage. Like, that is absolutely horrendous. And I'm so sorry they're dealing with this. If I was in this person's shoes, I would immediately go up to my mom and tell them, this is really uncomfortable for me. There's nothing I can do about it, and I'm really sorry that the marriage fell apart. But this is not on me, this is on you. Then again, saying this to your parent at 14 years old is really, really hard, and I don't expect it to go that way. But I would definitely express my feelings of discomfort and sadness that my mom is placing this kind of pressure on me. This is such a sad situation, and I genuinely wish the original poster the absolute best in trying to navigate this, because this is just not fair. And it's not fair for your mom to put you in this kind of position with this kind of pressure, all because she can't handle this relationship herself, which, by the way, is not your responsibility. An entitled Karen tries to get me fired when I won't accept her coupon that is for another store. So I've been working at a Subway near my house for a couple of months, and I was making myself a mid-shift lunch when a woman came up to the counter to order her sandwich, and so I put aside my food and helped her first, as I'm supposed to do. After she ordered her sandwiches, I got them all wrapped and rung up, and I told her the total, and she gave me a coupon for a buy one get one free, and normally I would be okay with it, but it was for a Jimmy John's and not a Subway. When I told her that she couldn't use it here and that she would have to pay the full price for the sandwiches, she told me it was okay and that she would know because she worked at a Subway when she was my age. I told her that I was working there now and that it wasn't okay now because it's an entirely different chain of stores. We don't take those coupons. After a couple of minutes of back and forth of pretty much the same thing, she said that she'd like to talk to the manager as they were friends. At this point, I didn't argue because it would hopefully make her go away, and so I called my manager and put my phone on speaker. The conversation went as follows. The manager answered, I explained to the manager that a customer wants to talk to them, and this customer immediately says,
Your employee is refusing to accept my coupon and is forcing me to pay full price.
I chimed in by saying, the coupon is for Jimmy John's. I've tried explaining it to her that we cannot and will not take it, but she refuses to listen and pay for her 2 sandwiches that are already completed. The customer says,
It's just a sandwich. What's the big deal? Now, can I get my sandwiches or what?
I then explained that no, we can't do that without them paying full price. It's not a Subway coupon. I can't accept it. This customer then says the very thing that almost sets me over the edge. She says,
I want this employee fired for this. He is refusing to give me my food. How can you be on his side? This is so unfair.
Thankfully, my manager was not having it and actually had my back. My manager said, ma'am, if this continues, I'm just gonna hang up and nothing's gonna happen. Make your choice. Pay for the subs or leave. After that, she said a bunch of slanderous words about our location and how unfair we were treating our customers and all this other garbage. But to keep a long story short, she left, the subs got thrown out, and she was never to be heard from ever again. How on earth do you go into a Subway and try and use a Jimmy John's coupon? I mean, what kind of weirdo is that? You're just causing a big fuss over a sandwich that you could have made at home for cheaper. And I thought this manager was your friend. What happened? On a personal note, when I worked in customer service, I absolutely hated when a customer would try and claim that they knew the manager by person or that they were friends, because 99% of the time that was a complete lie. If you're friends with them, go ahead and give them a call and complain about me. I could care less. And you can bet those are the type of people who are the most entitled, and they will act the most crazy when they don't get what they want. It's just absolutely insane, and it's completely irrational. Worst of all, if this actually is the case where the manager is friends with this crazy customer, the manager is probably too much of a coward to say anything to this person for their negative, abusive behavior. And that, in and of itself, is completely horrible to deal with as an employee. All things aside, I'm so glad that this lady did not get what she wanted, and I'm so glad that coupon was not accepted. Because Karens like this need to be put in their place. Because the last thing they want to hear is the word no, when in reality, they should have heard that years ago. Today, I messed up by asking a girl at the gym to put my hair in a ponytail. This happened 2 days ago, and I'm still horribly embarrassed. I go to a really big gym with lots of treadmills. For the first part of my workout, I usually run several miles. I also have long curly hair. It's very clean and well kept. I know it's not gross because random women always approach me and say how much they like it. It actually embarrasses me because I'm a little shy. The problem is, lately when I've been running, it's flopping around getting into my eyes, which is super annoying. Last time I was at the gym, this woman noticed and put it in a ponytail for me. It worked out great and I was really appreciative. So the other day, I bought some hairbands, and when I got on the treadmill, I tried to put it in a ponytail. After 10 minutes of fumbling with it, it was a no-go. There was a younger girl in her 20s on the treadmill next to me grinning, watching my wrestling match. She had completed her workout. I sheepishly looked at her and said it was my first time trying it alone, and I was obviously uncoordinated. She started to laugh, and this is where my mess up starts. I told her my hair was clean and asked if she could please help me real quick. Her eyes got very big and she said nothing. She just smiled at me and walked away. Suddenly, I realized either she was really grossed out by touching a strange guy's hair, or she thought I was trying to pick her up. I felt awful and creepy. First off, I'm a bit older than her. I'm about 56. However, I would never poach a girl in her 20s. My daughter is in her 20s. Furthermore, I think it's in poor taste to hit on women at the gym. We are all there to work out, not to score dates. I wanted to apologize, but I never saw her again. Now, I can't get this feeling of being a total old guy mouth breather out of my head. And worst of all, I still can't put my hair in a ponytail. Were you just as shocked as I was to find out that this was a 56-year-old man with this long hair? Did not expect that for the life of me. I can kind of see both sides of this. I can completely understand where this guy's coming from, where he feels like he scared this lady off, all because he asked her to put his hair in a ponytail. Because I think this guy said it best. You don't go to the gym to try and pick up a date. It's weird, it's awkward, and you can come off as a creep really quickly. I think your best solution would be to see if you can put your hair up in a hat somehow, or to maybe get that 20-something-year-old daughter of yours to help you figure out how to put your hair in a ponytail instead of some random woman at the gym. Overall, though, I think this could have gone a lot worse, and I would personally be thanking my lucky stars that I never saw that lady again, because the awkward memories would have flooded back, and your time at the gym would probably be spoiled. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for being willing to testify against my dad in court? So sometime last year, I was asked by my mom if I was willing to testify in court that I never stayed at my dad's house for as long as they had been divorced. And well, here's how it went. My dad was taking my mom to court in a custody battle over my younger siblings. I was over 18 years old at the time, so it wouldn't be relevant to me. He was only doing this so he could pay less child support, which will be important later. So my parents got divorced in 2015 due to my dad's cheating and constant mental and emotional abuse, with a dash of gaslighting on the side. My mom has the majority of the custody, taking 2 weeks to my dad's 1, and then later to my dad just getting every other holiday and summers. My parents settled the child support personally without lawyers involved for some reason, probably to save money or something like that. And that was that. That is until my mom started to request a little more money because what she was getting was such a little amount, as my dad had been decreasing the amount he paid as the years went by. It eventually got to the point where my dad sued my mom over custody of the kids so he wouldn't have to pay more, which is dumb because paying for kids full time is most probably more expensive. So with the trial approaching, my mom asked if I would be willing to testify over a video call, and I agreed. Ever since I learned that my dad cheated on my mom, it's been very difficult to like him, and what made it even more difficult was hearing how even now he's cruel to her and is aggressive towards her still, even when she moved to another state. So I still don't know how, but my dad found out that I was asked to testify, and he texted me to ask
ask me about it. He asks if my mom asked me to testify, and I tell him yes, she did, to which he immediately goes, "I don't think it's right to have your own son testify against you, do you?" To which I tell him that it isn't a matter of right or wrong. He claims it is wrong and asks why I would do it. I just tell him I'm not going to have a debate about it. He then goes on a rant about how he deserves to know why his own son would do it, to which I tell him this is the exact reason why I didn't want to tell him. His reaction to knowing would be aggressive. He then tells me to be a man, tell him straight up, and that he can take it. I just tell him I'm not doing it because I hate him and that he is just overthinking it. I then ask why he's bringing masculinity into it, to which he denies having done, saying it's just a saying. The conversation goes like that for a little longer until he says, "I forgive you for whatever you do, always love you," to which I respond, okay, and then I stop texting him. A few days later, the trial comes about, and I am not asked to take the stand, virtually that is, and the court rules in my mom's favor, ordering my dad to pay the legal amount of child support, which turns out he was paying far less than he should have been. So the entire time he was trying to get out of paying child support, he also ended up paying a bit more than he would have otherwise. Plus, all of the back pay he was due. On top of that, he was also forced to pay for my mom's lawyer as well. So for him, the entire trial was a huge waste of money, and he won nothing. Unfortunately, my little siblings still have to spend summers there. That didn't change, and they find it miserable, but they get through it. But it's mostly a happy ending, as they don't have to spend extra time there. My dad won nothing and still pretends to care about his kids. I also don't think he even cares about the time they spend together. He just likes to make my mom upset. All he does is try to bribe my siblings with things like AirPods or a new iPhone or a little dirt bike, which doesn't work, by the way. They still hate going to his house. In the end, I didn't end up testifying against him. And even if I did need to testify, they were just going to ask me if I ever stayed there, which in all honesty is a small question, but I would have answered it. I think my dad thought I was going to say something worse than that. He couldn't have known what I was going to be asked, but his reaction to knowing what I could have done only made wanting to do it feel better. So am I the jerk in this situation? Am I the jerk for being willing to testify in court against my dad? I don't think you're a jerk at all. I think this situation is really messy overall. Your dad only took your mom to court so he didn't have to pay child support payments. It's a really scumlord thing to do because it reveals his hand completely. He's basically saying, hey, you're not worth the money, and that's directed towards his kids. It's a very telling sign when divorced parents don't want to do what they need to do for their kids, whether that's paying child support payments or even buying them simple things like shoes or clothes or food. When a parent doesn't provide that type of stuff, if they're able to, then they are, in my eyes, a terrible parent. And the way this father is acting is not indicative of being a good parent. If anything, he's just a piece of garbage, and he is a terrible father. He does not care about his kids for a second. He just wants a discount on the family that he abandoned. And kids are smart. They can see the writing on the wall. In this situation, it probably wouldn't take much for the original poster's younger siblings to see exactly which parent actually cares. Is it the mom that's doing her best to try and figure out their situation and provide them with some semblance of a childhood as well as happiness and the things they need? Or is it the father who's trying to claim custody over the kids for the sole reason so that he doesn't have to pay child support payments? In my opinion, it doesn't take a genius to see that the dad in this situation is a terrible parent. And if I was a kid dealing with this stuff, I would absolutely pick my mom over him any day of the week. So good for this original poster for choosing to stick up for their siblings, because you can bet that dad only texted them because he didn't want them to say anything that would ruin his case. Also, he can try and save a little bit of money. Today, I messed up by getting my mom and my girlfriend's mom to think that we hated each other, all while we secretly dated. And let's just say it was a mess. This happened over 8 months ago. So my girlfriend's mom and my mom worked together. They became close friends last year. And since then, they've been trying to get her daughter and I, we're both 19 years old, together and to start dating. They made a few attempts at getting us to meet, and it was really annoying. All we kept hearing was how good we would be together. We never actually met each other until she was tricked into getting a job where I worked. I had seen pictures of her, but she looked even better in person. After getting to know each other over the next 4 months, we realized we had a lot in common. The problem is we're both stubborn and didn't want to give them the satisfaction that they were right about us all along. So to repay them, we decided to pretend that we hated each other while secretly dating. If the relationship lasted a year, then we would
would tell them all about us. We made up a story about an argument we had one day at work. After that, we would just randomly start talking garbage about each other to our moms and then sit back and see what their reactions were. It was hilarious and made it easier for us to secretly date. But last week, we probably took the joke too far. My girlfriend was giving me some lines to say about her, and we decided to heavily imply that I wouldn't be the first guy that she spent quality time with, if you know what I mean. When I told my mom this, she told my girlfriend's mom about it. It started an argument between the two of them about how I treated her daughter horribly. Of course, my mom tried to defend me by saying she's heard all the insults my girlfriend has said about me as well. 2 days ago, we were told that they are no longer friends. We told them the truth about our relationship, but I guess it was too late because they said some nasty stuff about each other. Now my girlfriend and I feel awful for breaking up a good friendship. We should have been honest about our relationship from the start, especially with two people who would have supported our relationship from the get-go. It's never a good feeling knowing that you ruined a friendship, but even worse that you ruined a friendship over a lie. And that's really rough because it looks like both of these moms went in on it and said some super nasty stuff that ruined their relationship completely. Which really sucks because it sounds like they were good friends to begin with, and everything got messed up over a lie. I mean, sure, I can completely understand where you're coming from, where you have your mom trying to set you up with some other girl, and these two moms are trying to work together to get you two to date. Trust me, I've been there, and yes, it can be very frustrating. But at the end of the day, you started dating. You probably should have said something in the beginning and been like, hey, you were right. But things didn't go that way. Hopefully things can work out, and hopefully your mom as well as your girlfriend's mom can become friends again, because obviously the two of you never intended for anything like this to happen. So hopefully they're able to eventually make up and get things straight again. Today, I messed up by stealing what I thought was a pine cone, only to find out that it was a shark egg from an aquarium. Here's what happened. When I was really young as a child of 10 in primary school, a fun activity we used to indulge in was having a group of kids with designated locations on the playground called pine cone bases, where we would collect as many pine cones as possible and stash them there at the location of choice. There were pine trees completely circling around the oval, so during the autumn, the ground would become littered with them. We'd all collect as many as possible. When the season for pine cones passed, stealing pine cones from other bases and bringing them to your own was permitted, but you had to give it back if you were tagged. Most leaders would build diplomatic relationships with others, so there would be some semblance of peace. This did not always last, and war would break out between the groups. My base was strategically picked, where two fences met near sandwiched together, between the neighboring house and the school itself. The pine cones would slip right down between the two fences and would be secure from any thief from other groups. So naturally, we reached the top. The base with the most pine cones was considered the pinnacle of all bases, and its people were among the most elite. Hotels and holiday houses paled in comparison to the might of the master pinecone base. It demanded without question everyone's respect. My influence even allowed me to pick what the special could be for the canteen lunch. It was always chicken tenders. One day, as a school incursion, we went to the city aquarium with bingo charts and questionnaires, which we had to solve by going to each point of interest, consisting of octopi, coral, fish, sharks, and other marine wildlife and activities. We were all split into groups of 5. I was in Team Sea Urchin. As we entered one of the rooms containing many glass walls, with beautiful wildlife swimming behind them, there was a single tank in the center with the lid off, just low enough for kids to see inside. It was full of coral and bubbles, but there, right in my face and bobbing in the center, was the strangest, most sleek-looking and smoothest pine cone I'd ever seen. It was beautiful and spiral in shape. My eyes must have flared in surprise, and my mind began to rush, because before anyone had a chance to see me, I had picked it up out of the water and stuffed it into my backpack. Throughout the rest of the incursion, we continued to answer all the questions and spot the bingo charts with the fish we found. It turned out not to be a contest, but whether or not the students were engaged in the activity, so no prizes were given out. Eventually, the excursion came to a conclusion, and we all had to return to the bus. Everything seemed normal, though I was slightly a bit giddy and far too excited to return to the playground. Once we returned to school, I proudly ran across the oval and placed my beautiful, unique pine cone in the center of the rest, right between the two fences where it was certainly safe. The moment the bell rang, we all went back to our classrooms, and the teacher had yet to enter. He came in later than usual. Upon coming through the door, he was red in the face, flustered as he leaned against the chalkboard. With a strain in his voice, he said,
Does anyone know anything about a missing shark egg from the aquarium today? Me being me at the time, I pretending nothing of it happened, though eventually my beautiful centerpiece went missing. What a crazy story, because I can 100% see a kid doing this. They go to an aquarium, they see something cool, nobody's looking, I'm gonna take it. I'm pretty sure that shark egg probably did not survive the trip, so I'm not sure if it was like an exhibit or something, but I really hope that wasn't a live shark inside that egg waiting to be born. Overall, this story is really funny and it makes me want to collect pine cones just a little bit more.
My entitled sister-in-law ruins a family visit. I was dreading my recent visit to my parents' house because my entitled brother and my entitled sister-in-law overrun the house with all their stuff and expect anyone who's around to watch their kids. Unfortunately though, this is nothing new. My sister-in-law was in week 3 or 4 of a cold, so she took frequent naps and just left her 4 and 7-year-old girls to do whatever they wanted, assuming that somebody was going to watch them. The kids got up super early, around 6 or 7 in the morning. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law and my brother sleep in until 9 o'clock. Then she goes downstairs to nap from 12 to 3. Then my entitled brother just tells me to watch the kids, not even asking me. He was supposed to be helping my dad and my husband with a chore, so he was excused. I asked where their mother was and was told that she was napping. Even better, we all had to be quiet while she slept. So I'm now responsible for watching her kids, but also I have to make sure that they are perfectly quiet while they scream about where mommy is. Another fun thing is our daughter is a teenager, and the little girls run her ragged and don't respect her privacy in the slightest, especially when she's trying to sleep or even use the bathroom. If those spoiled children are awake, they're screaming for her. Also, my entitled sister refuses to let the kids have any devices, so they have to be entertained 24/7. They are allowed to watch Disney, but my dad used their account on his television, and my sister-in-law refused to tell my dad her password and insisted that he let her put it in. He's 80 years old. It's not like he's gonna steal her password to her Disney account. On the 4th, we set off some fireworks, and I was filming and playing some fireworks music on my phone. My sister-in-law tells me I'm not allowed to play the 1812 overture. I picked Ray Charles' God Bless America because I thought it was a safe bet, but I forgot that my entitled sister-in-law is a rabid atheist. About a minute into the song, she says, "That's enough of that." I was absolutely floored. Not to mention that she, as well as my brother, are 10 years younger than me. Most of my videos have her yelling at the girls to stay on the blanket. They also demanded dinner at 6 o'clock on the dot and complained until it was served. But of course, they didn't do anything to help my 80-year-old mom to fix it, who, by the way, had a knee replacement surgery and just walks around with a limp. I have never seen anybody act this extra around family, but my mom never says anything to them. Instead, she says it behind their back and wishes that they would improve their behavior. It's a really sad situation because I know the type of parents you're talking about. They come over, they storm the house, then they drop their kids off and say, "Hey, it's your problem now." It's super inconsiderate, especially when you didn't ask the person in the first place of, "Hey, can you watch my kids?" It sounds like the sister-in-law as well as your brother are super lazy. They need to get off their butt and raise their own kids. And personally, if I was in your situation, I would stop watching the kids. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna let them run outside or anything like that, or get into anything that could possibly hurt them or anything like that. But there's no way on earth I'm gonna sit there and be forced to babysit kids I don't want to babysit. That's not fair for me or anybody else around. So personally, that's what I would do if I was in your shoes. But also, it will probably do you as well as your parents a lot of good if you step up and say something. You shouldn't have to deal with this kind of behavior, and it's completely inappropriate as well as irresponsible to allow it to happen. Setting up boundaries and putting your foot down is not a bad thing. Sometimes people like this need that type of information for them to realize, oh, I'm being a piece of garbage. Otherwise, you're just enabling this behavior. And by not saying anything, you're basically saying, yeah, you can act like this. And who knows, maybe with some healthy boundaries, the entitled sister-in-law and your brother might clean up their act and probably be a little bit better potentially. You never know unless you try. My entitled cousin thinks she has the right to hold my newborn baby despite me telling her no multiple times. Things got bad very quickly when she simply would not take no for an answer. Here's what happened. I'm a first-time mom, and now that my baby is 4 months old, I felt comfortable starting to go around family and friends. We had a family reunion this past weekend, and I was excited to see my family that I haven't seen in a year. Before the trip, I made sure to ask around who was vaccinated and who was not so I would know who I would be comfortable with around my baby. For those who were not vaccinated, I just had my husband take the baby and socialize while social distancing, which would hopefully be no big deal. That is until my cousin steps into the picture. This cousin is someone I don't talk to. She is someone who has been incredibly mean to me in the past, all because I am younger than her. She is also incredibly irresponsible and has 5 kids that she lost custody to because she was a terrible parent, she was neglectful, and those kids behaved so badly that the person that took custody of them couldn't handle them, so the kids just float around since my cousin refuses to parent or discipline them. My dad described it as a baby raising 5 babies. It's a sad situation, but it doesn't excuse her being a terrible parent. So this cousin walks up to me and says, "Let me hold your baby." I just look at her and say, "What?" She then repeats herself, "Let me hold your baby. I want to hold him." I look at her and I laugh nervously and I just say, "No, no thank you." She then gets pretty aggressive at this point and goes, "No, let me hold him. Give him here." She then reaches out and tries to touch my son. I thankfully lean away and block her with my shoulder before she can touch him. I say, "No, I don't want you to hold him. People keep asking me and I said no." She then tries to go with this rationale of, "I let you hold mine when they were babies. You have to let me hold yours." As a side note, she didn't let me hold her baby. She put them on my lap and left the house and didn't come back. I had to call my dad to find her parents to come take the baby because I had no idea what to do since I was like 15 at the time. I responded back and said, "I don't want you to hold him." So this entitled cousin storms off and goes to my husband, thinking she's gonna get a different response. She says, "Can I hold your baby?" At this point, I was incredibly pissed off because I had already said no. My husband looks at her deadpan and says, "Are you vaccinated?" My entitled cousin then goes off on a rant that none of us are really surprised about. She says, "Yes. No, I don't believe in the corona. It's a man-made disease and I don't know anyone who's gotten it." Fun fact, her mom has gotten it 3 times and was sitting next to us. She then basically goes on this long rant sitting on her soapbox, claiming that COVID isn't real. My husband just takes it like a champ and doesn't even react. He just simply says, "Then no, you can't hold the baby." And that was enough for her to finally leave us alone. But I thought this was the end of it. But when I woke up in the morning, I saw several messages sent to me over social media with this entitled cousin acting furious. But oh well, I can't help her. A baby is a person, and honestly, you're not gonna play with it like it's a toy. This cousin is absolutely crazy because when a mom says you can't hold my baby, guess what? You can't hold her baby. It's not up for debate. You don't go to the husband. You step back, honor their wishes, and get lost. And especially with kids who are just recently born, I don't blame these parents for a second for being incredibly selective around who they want their kid around. Because a sick baby is a miserable baby and a miserable family. And I, for one, would not want anyone getting my kid sick, all because of their terrible personal decisions. So next time, hopefully this cousin learns their lesson and respects the mother's wishes that no, you can't hold my baby. An entitled man demands to be let out of a parking lot that explicitly states they're closing for 4th of July fireworks. Things got so bad that the police had to get involved. First, some backstory. My mom is the director of operations at a well-known restaurant in our small town. The town is located near a lake. So the restaurant has a dock so boats can come in. There's also a bridge that goes over the lake to another part of town. Every year on the 4th of July, all of the roads near the restaurant, including the bridge, are closed off so no vehicles can go through as the fireworks take place over the lake itself. There are always a few people every year who don't quite understand this and are trapped until the roads are reopened after the fireworks. So my brother and I are sitting in the outside portion of the restaurant eating our food. The fireworks start in about 2 hours. It was incredibly busy, as expected during the 4th of July, and the restaurant was selling VIP seats to view the fireworks. All of a sudden, I heard someone behind me scream, "I am going to sue this establishment." I almost immediately turned around, surprised by what I just heard. It was a man probably 40 to 50 years old. He had sunglasses on, a backwards USA cap, a blue long-sleeve shirt, swim shorts, and some sandals. It turns out he was trapped by the 8 o'clock p.m. cutoff line for getting out, as the roads had just been closed down for the fireworks show. He literally said, "I demand to see a supervisor." That's when my mom enters the picture, who is confused as to what is going on. She confronted the man, who said his complaints to her. She says that he's out of luck and that the roads were closed off by the police. The man did not like this and accused the restaurant for not informing their guests properly. He stormed off and approached a few police officers who were nearby. They told him the exact same thing. He said that he had 2 kids that he was unable to get to, even though his wife and 2 kids were literally sitting in his truck behind him. More police officers arrived, as they were just down the street. My mom was now talking to the police at this point, as now they were getting both sides of the story. After a bit, the chief of police showed up. This entitled man made a very bold move and demanded that the chief of police unblock the roads just for him. Keep in mind, there are hundreds of people on the streets walking onto the bridge, so the chief told him straight up, no, that's not happening. That's when the man's story changed completely. Before, his story was that he couldn't reach his kids, but now, all of a sudden, he said that his father was suddenly hospitalized and he needed to leave immediately. At this point, everyone was fed up with this guy's baloney. And guess what? Newsflash, the restaurant had a sign out front warning the people that come into the restaurant that about 8 p.m. would be the cutoff time. My mom then chimed in and said, I'm sorry, can you see this sign over here? The man then said that what? If you don't leave by 8, you're gonna be trapped? More arguing ensued, and now this man wanted my mom to reverse his credit card transaction for his entire meal because it would make him feel better. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see the rest of the chaos as we went to sit somewhere else. But after the fireworks ended, guess who I saw in a front row seat of the fireworks show? That's right, this entitled man-child, his wife, and his 2 kids. You know, the ones he claimed he couldn't get in contact with. He was so worried about getting out of the parking lot, and all of a sudden he's okay with it. Thankfully, he left soon after as the roads reopened, and hopefully we never see him at our restaurant ever again. I honestly can't stand people like this. They make a big scene and then they pretend like, hey, heaven and earth needs to move to meet my needs. People like this become so entitled so quickly, pretending like they're the VIP in everybody else's restaurant. That is some serious main character syndrome if I've ever seen it. You've got to move all these people because I want to leave. No, it doesn't work like that. You're going to wait like everybody else, and then you can leave when the fireworks are done and the roads open up. Obviously, they didn't get their way, and I'm kind of glad the police chief showed up and put him in his place. My boyfriend fabricated his entire previous relationship, and I could not be more shocked. I started dating a guy a couple of years ago. When we talked about our exes, he said he had one girlfriend before, someone he dated for around 9 months, and they split because they had different ideas of life. I quickly realized a few weeks ago that something was odd about him. It felt like he had zero relationship experience. Pretty much all of our interactions made me believe that he didn't understand normal relationship things. I had to explain everything to him. It was like dating a teenage boy. Mind you, this man is in his 30s. Things then got really bad really quickly. He started shouting at me all the time and hurling insults whenever he could. I started to wonder if his previous girlfriend was also treated this way and how she had managed to cope with his situation. After considering it for a while, I reached out to this supposed ex to see if he had treated her the same way. Her response completely shocked me. She said she had never dated him. They were only friends and they had never even touched or kissed each other. I am honestly disgusted. He told me intimate details about them, about all the quality time they spent together, and told me she cried when they broke up. But it turns out it was all literally a lie. It now makes me confirm that I was indeed his first relationship. This lady told me that they were friends and that's all they ever were, and she blocked him because of his weird behavior. And honestly, I believe it. I feel completely creeped out and disgusted. She was shocked too and sounded disgusted as well that he would make up an entire relationship. I honestly had no idea he was lying. None at all. I thought it was all real. Needless to say, I was completely blown away, and I'm glad this relationship did not work out. What a complete weirdo. This guy completely made up some relationship he had with this previous lady, claiming that she was his previous girlfriend and that they had spent all this time together getting to know each other and then some. And for some reason felt the need to explain this away to the current woman that he's dating, only for it all to be a complete and utter lie. That is so creepy, I don't even know what to say. I bet you that the reason why he made up this imaginary girlfriend was that so people wouldn't know that he's never actually been in a relationship before. It could not be more obvious that this is his first relationship. I mean, how do you think that woman must have felt when she's messaged by the original poster with the ridiculous statement that she had dated this guy? I would personally be completely horrified if that was me. So hopefully you
dumped this guy pretty quickly and you got away from this weirdo. Because while there's nothing wrong with having a first relationship later in life, in contrast, there is something extremely wrong if you're gonna make up a relationship at the expense of a lady who clearly wants nothing to do with you and your weird behavior. And honestly, I don't blame her.
My boyfriend of 2 months went camping with another woman and lied to me about it. What should I do? We've only been dating for about 2 months, but things seem to have been going really well, and I actually let him meet my kid, which is a big deal for me, and I've met his kids a few times as well. He told me last weekend was supposed to be a guy's camping weekend, but one guy bailed, so the other guy brought his wife. I wondered why he didn't invite me if it was another couple, but I had plans anyways, so I didn't put too much stock into it, thinking I had maybe mentioned my plans and that's why he didn't invite me. So he got a text message last night in the middle of asking me to look at his Apple Watch for something, and he swiped it away really fast. And I've been through this before, so I was really suspicious of that. Today after work, I looked at his Facebook profile to see if I could find a friend of his with the names on the text, as that's all I was able to see. I saw her profile, and it had pictures of the same campsite he had sent me. The same tent, the same 2 chairs, the same cooler, the same case of beer, and she's single, noted right on her profile. So I looked closer at the pictures he sent me, and it's pretty obvious it was just the 2 of them camping together. So that also makes it pretty clear that he lied to me about who was with him. I want to be clear that I looked at both their public profiles. I in no way have access to any of his devices or his passwords. So nothing was done by snooping here, just good old-fashioned research. He and I have been making plans for later in the summer to go camping with the kids, so I thought this was actually going somewhere. You don't usually make this kind of plans with someone you don't see sticking around in your life. I would never have introduced him to my kid if I thought he wasn't serious about me. And now I feel kind of creepy about doing the same activity with him that he has been so shady and dishonest about in regards to this other woman. I obviously have to talk to him about it, but I don't even know if I want to see him again. Would it be out of line for me to just text him the screenshots of the pictures I saw and leave it at that? Or do I owe him an in-person conversation? What should I do? From personal experience, if a significant other is lying to me, even this early into a relationship, I mean, she's only been seeing him for 2 months. That's a big red flag to me, and that's super not okay. I would personally have a conversation with my significant other and say, hey, I know you lied to me, and I kind of want to know the truth, with my intentions being that if you don't say the right things, we're breaking up. Obviously, all of this kind of depends on the situation, as well as who it is that you're actually dating, but after 2 months in, this guy's already lying about going camping with another woman by themselves is not something personally I would want to deal with. And you introduce your kid to this guy. I honestly think for the sake of your kid, it's probably time to cut this guy loose and find somebody else, because having a liar for a boyfriend is not worth it, especially when your kids are going to be affected by it. My girlfriend of 4 years kissed a much older coworker that she has a crush on, and I honestly don't know what to do about it. My girlfriend and I have been dating for 4 years and a few months now. I came home today to a written list of things that I've been doing that make her feel unfulfilled and lonely. She has mentioned these things in the past. I've been distant recently because I've been down in the dumps about a back injury that prevented me from physical activity. I spin out of my healthy routine and slip into drinking on weeknights, playing video games for hours on end, and just not being emotionally there. I also neglected chores more often, which I had been pretty good about up until now. She's reading off the paper and gets to the last point. She tells me to listen to her fully and not get angry, but that if I am angry and never want to see her again, she understands. At this point, my guts drop in my stomach. I know how this goes. Her coworker, who's maybe 40 to 50 years old, has been crushing on her, and she admitted that she had a crush on him too. But it wasn't anything because they're coworkers and he's much older, which honestly to me is just wrong. They had a pool day for their office, and she stayed there all day until midnight. It was at this guy's house too. Everyone left and it was just the 2 of them. She goes to leave and they stop at the door. He goes in for a kiss and she just lets it happen. Not just lets it happen though, she leans into it and grabs his neck while he's grabbing her waist. No idea how long, but she eventually says that this is wrong and leaves to come home. I was at a trade show for work all day, so I'm asleep by then, but had been texting her while she was there, saying stuff like, I hope you're having a good time, as well as saying, I love you and I'll see you at home. This happened June 25th, and she told me today on July 5th, after we got back from our vacation in Denver. She didn't want to spoil the trip. She is claiming responsibility for it, but is also blaming it on me for my new drinking habits as well as my depression that I've been struggling struggling with, as well as saying it was because I made her feel lonely and this guy gave her attention. We have a year left on our lease and 2 cats who are like children to me. I still love her. I want it to work out, but I also feel like maybe I can't trust her and maybe she truly wants out but doesn't have the guts to tell me. I'm honestly so lost right now and I'm so incredibly hurt, but this woman is my best friend. I don't know how to live without her. What should I do? First off, this is not your fault. You are not the reason she decided to kiss her coworker. She is. She is trying to pin this situation on you so she doesn't feel guilty about cheating on you. Which, by the way, she cheated on you. That's exactly what just happened. If she had any sense about her, she would have said, no, I have a boyfriend at home, and would have left after that. But no, she was not loyal and she did not care. There are so many red flags here too. Like if you were feeling depressed after an injury and you're sad because you're not as physical as you used to be, why would she not be there for you? On the contrary, she just wrote up a list of all the things you're not doing and that she's just saying, oh, I'm unhappy about it. Which then begs the question, how is her being unhappy then suddenly lead to her kissing her coworker? Like that's just absolutely ridiculous. It's so manipulative for her to try and blame this all on you for something that she clearly did that it's not even funny. I understand that you think she's your best friend, but guess what? She's not. In my opinion, she does not see you in the same light, clearly. So I wish you the best of luck in whatever you decide to do with this relationship, because based on what you've shown us, she does not care about you nearly as much as you think. My sister is financially struggling, and I want to help her even though this is all her fault. What should I do? I honestly don't even know where to begin with this. When my sister was in her early 20s, she met this girl at her job. After a month of dating, my sister ran away from home to be with her and hid in our uncle's home for months without us knowing she was 2 minutes away from the house. Of course, my mom was super angry that her own brother didn't tell her my sister was there with her girlfriend. But my mom got over it and, well, what could she do? When my sister ran away, she had no money. Nothing. She was working at a fast food restaurant and just left with no money in her pockets. After she left my uncle's house, her and her girlfriend were bouncing around homes, living with her girlfriend's different family members, until they eventually found a house to rent. My sister has never had stable jobs. They have all been temporary type jobs, and her girlfriend doesn't work. She just stays at home instead of helping my sister out. Every now and then, her girlfriend will pick up a job, but she'll stay for like a month before quitting. Anyway, my sister has never been financially stable because she just can't save money because her girlfriend doesn't help out. My sister has been behind on rent many times. She has a lot of things that are in collections right now, and she hasn't had gas in her home for who knows how long, which is something that we just found out. She owes like $400 also on her phone bill right now, and it's about to cut off today. Here are just a few examples of how she has poor money management skills. A few years ago, she knew she was going to be out of a job in a week and went ahead and bought a $30,000 truck. She would also travel around our state so her girlfriend could get those Instagram-worthy pictures because she just needs validation from everyone else even though she didn't have the money for traveling. She would also skip out on paying bills because she needed to get another credit card to buy Christmas presents for her girlfriend's family. When they're really tight on money, she gets really angry at my parents because my parents tell her to tell her girlfriend to get a job so that they can afford their own bills. And these are just a few of the examples that I can remember off the top of my head. Yesterday, she told me she was so broke right now that she almost became homeless. She told me she only had $80 for the rest of the week and it was going to be for gasoline for her big truck. You know, the one she bought a week before her job ended. She told me her girlfriend applied for unemployment, but she hasn't gotten her unemployment money yet, and they didn't have any money for food. Sometimes I feel guilty because my husband and I make a lot of money, and I feel like I need to help my sister. I feel like I need to buy her groceries or something. Also, I wanted to mention, my sister is always asking my mom for money. My mom is always letting her borrow money that she never pays back. My sister probably owes my mom thousands of dollars at this point. It bothers me that when my sister needs money, my mom always gives her the money. My sister needs to learn her lesson, but she doesn't, because when she needs money, my mom is always there to give it to her. What should I do? It is definitely not your fault that your sister makes terrible financial decisions. And it doesn't help that she's got a girlfriend who does not do
anything to assist the situation. She doesn't even have a job to pay for bills. I mean, come on. It's time to get off your butt and get to work. That's not how the real world works. You can't just sit around and let mommy and daddy take care of everything. You gotta get things going yourself. Otherwise, you'll never be truly independent. If I was in the original poster's shoes, I absolutely would not give any money to this sister because she's just gonna spend it all and then come back asking for more. You don't want to set up that kind of precedent that she can then come to you like she comes to her mom, always asking for money and always asking for assistance on things that she could very easily get a job and figure out herself. On a personal note, I know exactly what it's like to go without money, to have $80 for the rest of the week and wondering how you're going to get your next meal. So I'm no stranger to knowing how poor you can actually be and how desperate things can get. But to enable your sister is not helping her. It's not the case where your sister has fallen on hard times because of unexpected circumstances. These are literally situations she's found herself in all because of her own choice to not work, as well as to be with a partner who does not work. If you keep giving her money, nothing's gonna change. It is quite literally only delaying the inevitable. So yeah, don't give her any money. She'll learn this lesson the hard way, and I think it's gonna come much quicker than you think. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.